I don't need a minute, okay? Um, I need to just, tell you guys right now that I went to that cousin place and I had, a glass of champagne and it went straight to my head. So, I'm not a reliable narrator right now, but so just, bear with me. Welcome everybody to your match reaction for Fulham 1, Arsenal 1. Arsenal dropped 2 more points against Fulham. Drop points in the title race. Didn't play well. So yeah, and we're going to get into this match reaction. Do some player ratings. I think you know, I'll be so real with you guys. You guys know from the very beginning of the season, I was very negative about us being in the title race because I just don't think it's that hard to see whether or not you're in the title race or if you're good enough to win the title. I don't think it takes rocket science. I don't think you need to look at data sheets or anything like that. I just think you get a feeling. And I think from the very beginning of the season, I felt even during Wolves, I was like, yeah, we ain't got it. Um, and so playing against Fulham away from home, I feel like it doesn't take much to beat us at this stage. You know, when we were doing the preview for Fulham, I was like, it's not going to be easy because I don't think Fulham are a rollover type of team. But, if you play well below your level, you show up to Craven Cottage and you play at 5s and 6s, you're not going to win. And so I think if we had played anywhere near our level, even with the weird lineup that we started off with, we would have gotten the 3 points. I mean, we damn near did. We scored a goal at the very end and it was chalked off, So I think there's always a lot of thing about the lineup and, oh my gosh, you should have started Nelly, you should have started so and so. But the reality is, if guys are not up for it, they're not going to win the game. Guys were out there looking like they lost their damn puppy, and you can always tell from minute one whether or not we're going to be good, especially away from home. And I was getting flashbacks of Bournemouth, flashbacks of Newcastle, and those are 2 games that we dropped all 3 points in away from home. And maybe because we were in London this time, we didn't drop all 3, but we might as well have, because 1 point doesn't help us in the title race. It doesn't help us for shit, So I don't know what it is about this team where they just can't get up for games like this recently. It happened at the beginning of last season. It's happening now where we just completely drop our levels. And I get it. There were players that weren't playing in positions that suited them as much. Thomas Partey at right back, Timber at left back, whatever, Jorginho in, whatever your narrative is, Trossard instead of Martinelli. But I don't care what 11 we put out there. People were not locked in. They were not running hard, making tackles. That first goal that they scored, we let them pass the ball around for 2 minutes uncontested. No pressing, no nothing. Kai Havertz just jogging, Trossard just jogging. They're just passing the ball around us, and then boom, they get it into a decent area, pass it in between, behind Kivior. Kivior is out of position. Saliba doesn't pop over. Boom, goal. And that's all that they needed. That's all that they needed to get something out of that game, because we pissed around for the next 90 minutes or whatever the fuck it was. 80 minutes, we pissed around, passing the ball sideways and backwards, doing bullshit, whatever. They didn't have to do anything else. We didn't actually start really giving a shit until the 90th minute when we scored that goal. And guess what? It was offside. And Martinelli has no reason to be offside. At this point, we have got to get over this whole yeah, but if it's Trossard or if it's Martinelli, neither one of them are good enough at this stage of Arsenal wanting to win titles. Neither one. And the next guy up is Sterling. Seriously, we have 3 DMs. We have a DM playing at right back. We can't create any chances. We had 0.3 XG, non-penalty XG in this game. It's not good enough. And no mixture of the lineup. I heard people saying, well, Jesus would have done better. Jesus came on there and didn't even stretch for a goal opportunity that he should have been in for. There is no combination of players that gives us the edge that a player in the summer window would have given us. We dropped the ball in the summer window. There is no combination of players that is going to give an exponential growth in what we see right now. Basically, it's if Saka and Odegaard play well, we'll get over the line, no matter who else is in there. But if they drop their levels by any little bit, we are fucked. And that's exactly what happened today. Arteta almost got away with it too. But I'm telling you, we seceded that we said fuck the title the moment we decided not to be serious in that transfer window. There is no combination. Jesus wasn't going to do shit. He was going to do the same thing as Kai Havertz, which is run around and do nothing. Trossard versus Martinelli is becoming the most ridiculous bullshit that I've ever seen. Arsenal fans go to like the depths of hell to make stupid arguments all the time. Yeah, but Martinelli would have ran. He wasn't going to get past Kenny Tete. He wasn't going to run past Kenny Tete. No, it's neither here nor there. We needed to buy a left wing in the summer. We needed to buy a striker in the summer. And we didn't do those two things. And ever since then, we have been pretending like what if we had just played Timber on the right and we had just played Tierney. Are you guys fucking joking me? There's no combination of players that gets us out of the hood. We needed to improve in the summer, and every time we drop points, it is a reflection of what we did in the summer. We didn't do enough. We didn't do enough. And Arteta just, if as long as he doesn't get whooped, people fall into these very menial conversations about like, yeah, but if Martinelli wasn't going to do anything in this game. Are you joking? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, well, if we had just had Gabriel, I'm sorry, we lost this game. We would have lost this game playing the way that we did with Gabriel. What was Gabriel going to do? Was he going to pass the ball between the lines? Maybe he would have got one on a corner, but still, guys, 0.3 non-penalty XG in this game against Fulham with all the possession. Just foreplay, no penetration, just passing the ball sideways and backwards all day long. With no way. We did not start playing until those final 5 minutes of the game. And we almost got away with it. And I feel like sometimes it's a good thing that you don't get away with it, because then it forces people to have real conversations. We are not, if you actually watch us, we do not look like a title winning side. We don't. We did not look better than Bournemouth. We did not look better than Brighton. We did not look better than Fulham. I could have walked in blind to Kazum. Let's just say that I just walked in blind to Kazum as a non-football person for 1 minute and looked and let's see, I watched the game for 5 minutes. I would not have been able to discern that Arsenal were the team going for the title. Probably would have thought both teams were mid-table teams. That's what I would have thought. There was no difference between us and Bournemouth. There's no difference between us and Brighton. And we actually dropped points, all 3 points against Bournemouth, but we dropped 2 points in the other 2 games. We can't beat upper mid-table teams now. Get that through your head. That's not just, oh, well, if we just make sure that we have Martinelli out there. No. Well, no. We dropped the ball in the summer and we are paying for it now. Arsenal need a change like they need air. They need a change. The last 2 windows have set us back so badly because all we needed to do was buy a striker and another winger, maybe another attacking midfielder. And we didn't do any of that shit. And now we're sitting back like, oh, I'm so surprised that this team can't break down a mid-block. Mid-block has been the bane of our existence since the second half of the first season that we challenged. People started putting down the mid-block after Christmas. After the Winter World Cup, they started doing mid-blocks and we started to struggle from there. We are almost in 2025 and we still can't break down a deep block or a mid-block. I'm still seeing people say, well, it's the old mid-block. Why are we still fucking with the mid-block? Why can't we figure that shit out? Why are we playing funeral ball again? Why are we passing around the houses? Mikkel, why are you afraid to lose the ball? What's going on? I'm tired. I am. Because I was getting I told you so's when Liverpool dropped them points to whoever the fuck they dropped points to the other day, and then we beat Manchester United. I'm getting I told you so's only for us to shit the bed a couple of days later. We are not winning the Premier League. We're not. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? These guys look fucking done. They played 3 or 4 good games, and then now they're down on their knees again. And y'all are talking about I told you so's because we beat a shit fucking United side midweek, only to turn around and shit the bed against a Fulham side that had 1 shot on target. Had 1 chance. All they needed was 1 chance, and then to sit in a mid block, and we were sitting around doing up passes around a horseshoe, and people are going, but if Martinelli, oh, if we had just had fucking Calafiori. No, we should not need a left back to unlock our game. If you need a left back to unlock your game, you're fucked. You're fucked. We should not be talking about our fullback should, like, if you lose your fullbacks, that should be more like, oh, well, we may concede more goals. If we lose our main fullbacks, we're talking about not being able to create a chance. Do you know how dumb that is? Like, that's not, you get what I'm saying? So, like, listen, I never thought we were going to win the title because I threw in the towel. Call me a pussy. I don't give a fuck. I threw in the towel after the transfer window closed because I knew what was tea. And the tea is hot and it's piping. We don't look good enough. Focus on the domestic cups and let's see where we land. Let's see what you guys are saying. It's nonsense. Jordan says the process is over. Victor says mathematically we aren't out, but I'm being so real with y'all. This team doesn't have title winning quality. Just watch. Just watch football. Watch football. Do you get it in your bones that we are a title winning side? Stop looking at statistics and, oh, well, mathematically, we don't look like a title winning side. The best team over a 38-game period wins 99% of the time. Leicester is an anomaly. That's why it's never happened again. City have been the best side 6 out of 7 seasons, and they've won it. We're not going to win it. This is the worst we've looked out of the 3 seasons that we've challenged. And people are doing up, yeah, but mathematically. Stop being dumb. We're not going to win it. Unless we can become a completely different side and Liverpool completely collapses, we are not winning the title. And you need to stop doing up the, yeah, well, you just don't have the stomach for a title race. It's not about not having the stomach for a title race. If we actually look like a title winning side, I'm in it, but we don't. So stop telling people that, oh, well, you're just not, good enough for a title race. You don't have the stomach for it. Watch football with your eyes. We're not good. We're not good consistently enough. This type of performance, so close to the Newcastle performance, is alarming to me because Newcastle has to be an anomaly in your season. That going away from home and not looking like you're going to score after they score in the 11th minute has to be an anomaly for a title-winning side. It is a regular occurrence for Arsenal. We have had 3 games like that in the first part of the season, and people are doing it, but the refs are stealing it from us. I need somebody to ask me, did the refs steal the game for us today? I had people telling me that I was ignorant. I didn't understand football. People that haven't even watched Arsenal for more than 10 or 15 years. I've been watching Arsenal since early 90s, early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And I have people that started watching when we were in the Emirates era telling me I'm ignorant because I don't understand football because we have been, the whole season has been hijacked from us by the referees. Who stole it from us today? Please stop telling people that they don't understand football. Get off your spreadsheets. Stop being a victim and look at it for what it is. This team is not terrible. This team is not the worst we've ever seen. It's not that bad, but this team is not prepared for a title race. And after 5 years, 6 years, we should be prepared. We should not be going backwards away from what we were in 2022 and 2023 after the amount of money that we spent. I am not going to hear people telling me that I don't know football now. Get a grip. Hold on to your horses. This is not going to be a good season. This is not the season you thought was going to happen. When people were saying, oh, well, it's just our time, I just feel it in my bones. You don't just win the title because it's our time. You win it because you fucking earn it. And we don't look like we're going to earn anything but maybe fourth. Michael says the problem is not that we are not good enough. The problem is that we don't play at a high tempo. We are not good enough. The problem is that we're okay. I get what you're saying. It's not that we're not a good side, because there's a complete difference between being a good side and being a title winning team. And the margins for us are very fine. I feel like the margins between us being a title winning side and being who we are now is the decisions being made by Mikel Arteta and the decisions being made off the pitch by the transfer team. We've needed a striker for as long as Aubameyang's been gone. We've needed a winger and since last season when we realized, or for most of us that realized that Martinelli wasn't going to cut it. And they showed up with fucking Raheem Sterling on the last fucking day, the last minute of the transfer window. We are not shit. That's not what I'm saying. We are not shit. But we're talking about the difference between being who we are right now and a team that wins the title. Boy says it's just football. AFC Whiskey says Kivior, Jesus, Zinchenko, Sterling won't win the club a major trophy. Shamaria says if we finish any less than second or third without a trophy, sack him. IEC says haven't Arteta and the other guy signed a new 3-year contract. Victor says as soon as we went behind, I knew we wouldn't win. We aren't a comeback team like that, and it always shows. Louis says Cronkies need to fucking go, man. Boy says we need options. I mean, when we were needing a goal, they brought in Munoz and we brought in Ethan. And I'm not saying that Ethan is ass. So don't come for me. Ethan is a great young player coming through the ranks that probably should be getting more playing time if we're honest. I didn't think that was a terrible sub. I thought Odegaard was having a mare and he was not going to help us. So I kind of understood the sub. But for Fulham to have Raul Jimenez and then to turn around and bring on Munoz, and we're bringing on a 17-year-old to save us, when we've already had Kai Havertz taken off and Jesus was already brought on, is just indicative of the negligence that's happened at Arsenal over the last 2 seasons. You need better attackers in your arsenal. So if you don't play perfectly, you have a get out of jail free card that is not trying to have your DMs and your center backs head the ball into the back of the net. You need to be able to scare the opposition with the attack that you have. You need to be able to keep them honest. Bassey and whatever that other guy's name is could have pulled out a lawn chair, grabbed a beer, put a television in front of their fucking faces, lit a cigar, and had the time of their life because Kai Havertz was not worrying them at all. And the fact that there is no other option than Jesus is ridiculous. And last season, it was Nketiah starting. So you can't tell me that this has not been a major miscalculation, because I get that people are like, a striker is not the only thing that can save us. And it's not. It's sometimes you need more than that. Like City have a striker and it's not saving them right now. I get that. But right now, that's what Arsenal need in order for the margins to go in our way. We need somebody that disrupts the back line and makes them have to defend. We need to be braver on the ball. We need to not just say, well, if it's a mid block, just keep crossing it in. When you have terrible crossers of the ball, like Martinelli, you have to have a different way of accessing central spaces and not be afraid to lose the ball, because that's essentially what happens. Arteta's so afraid to lose the ball because he's afraid to concede that we go around the houses and cross the ball in aimlessly to a striker that is not even in the box. Hello? Like, that's not football. That's not football. Burmy says in May, we'll be talking about remember that Fulham game again. I won't be because I'll be on vacation. I'm not going to be talking about Arsenal again in the summer, about what we should have done again. Like, I'm so sorry, but if you didn't see it when this transfer window closed, I don't know what to tell you. We really needed to upgrade that attack. Diehard Gunner says Kai won us a point today. It's just like Ramsdale. It's just like Ramsdale with you guys. Ramsdale would fuck us over early and then do a couple of really good saves, and you guys would be like, but he saved us a point. Kai Havertz being our striker for those first 90 minutes of the game, or whatever the fuck it was, 60 minutes of the game, and doing fuck all is the reason, like, is a big reason why we don't have any end product. We don't get in the box. We don't create any mayhem, nothing. So yeah, he may have helped with that goal that we scored off of a set piece. But other than that, what did he do? You guys get Ramsdale by every player that does that to us. Kai Havertz is getting into that Ramsdale category for me, where it's like he doesn't do anything, but if he scores off of a set piece or flicks it on or something like that, you guys are like, but he saved us. No, he didn't. He didn't. Jordan says Arteta should have left Trossard on. Martinelli killed our attack. Out there says Kai missed a header to score and it fell to Saliba. Stop the bull. I mean, it's just if you guys like running narratives and agendas right now doesn't work. Jonathan K says feel bad for Saliba. He deserves better. I mean, really, if it wasn't for Saliba played well today, I thought Saka was kind of like our only like decent attacker today. I thought Rice did well with what he could do. His deliveries at the end were not good enough. But beyond them and like Timber doing Timber things, despite being on this other side, I thought everybody else was anonymous. So, and Saliba was like head and shoulders above everyone else, by the way. And people tried to blame him for the goal. Kivior was lost. In fact, Emile Smith-Rowe did us a solid by when he ran off of the back of Kivior and Kivior had no idea where he was and he took that bad touch. I was like, Kivior has no idea what's going on in this game right now. He is so lost. He doesn't understand what's going on right now. It's just ridiculous. Like, at this level, this is not a Champions League final. This is a Premier League game away from home at Craven Cottage. How do you not know where Raul Jimenez is? He's running off of your shoulder. How do you not know where Emile Smith-Rowe is? He's running off of your shoulder. He was lost, and people were blaming Saliba, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, but that is not on Saliba. And then for the rest of the game, Saliba was our best outfield player, and it wasn't even close. Saka probably second because we kept passing the ball to him, but he always really struggles with the Anthony Robinsons and those types because, you know, he can't use his physicality to get beyond them because they're just as physical as him. So he had a tougher day, and that's all it takes is for Saka, Odegaard to have a tough day, and boom, it's done. You know? And this is why I'm saying, like, you can't run narratives and agendas on this channel because as much as I love Odegaard, he had the mare of a century, and I wanted him off the pitch because he wasn't going to fucking help us. I don't know what was going on with him. I don't know if he's been staying up with the baby. I get it. You just had a child, your first child. I get it. But he was really bad today. So let's not run agendas. Let's be honest. Just because your player didn't play well doesn't mean you have to detract from somebody else. Let's be serious for 1 minute. People were saying you can't blame Martinelli. But Martinelli came on and did fuck all. There's no that we are really like digging for like in the bottom with Trossard and Martinelli. Not because they're not good players, but because like we just need such a major upgrade. Like it needs major surgery that like neither one of them actually offer enough, especially when we're playing this way, where we just don't give them enough chances. If Martinelli gets 5 or 6 chances, he'll score one. If Trossard gets 5 or 6 chances, he'll score one. But right now, you're getting one chance. If you don't score that, you're fucked. IEC says Nelly has lost his football brain. Never had one. He says need to start playing in midfield. Needs to start playing in midfield. Who are you talking about? Bopo says Odegaard stinker against a mid block. I'm surprised. Boy says at the end of it all, it comes down to us not having that striker we're all desperate for. All while we sell various strikers. The McChronicle says, oh, and no more money for Mikel. He spent 800 million, and this is our attack. Sapphire says Arteta will be given 80 million for a striker, but he'll instead convert his newest project, Marino, into a false 9 and use 80 million on 2 defenders and a new left back. Yo-Yo says poor squad building is why we've fallen so short Arteta and Edu have ample opportunity to improve post 22-23. I'm no longer interested about criticizing the squad they built. And this is, I feel so similar to Yo-Yo because I feel like blaming individual players is very low-hanging fruit. And it's almost like, even if you don't like the player, who bought them? If you don't think Rice is a good enough player, who bought them? Like, who bought Rice? Who's playing Rice out of position right now? That's Arteta. That's Edu. So if you have multiple of those situations, because not just one player, it's a lot. So if you don't think that the squad was built properly and you don't like Odegaard and you don't like Rice and they're the main problem and all that kind of stuff, who bought those players? So I feel like at this stage, it's really difficult for me to get like engaged in the low-hanging fruit because we know we needed a left winger and a striker. And if we had those two players, I feel like some of these conversations will be nullified at this point. But we're still having Kai Havertz and Martinelli and Odegaard and Rice conversations in almost 2025. And I'm tired. Like, I just feel like it's low-hanging fruit. Jagoon says it's not even Rice. He was actually one of the better players. Exactly. Like, if you actually watch the game, he actually played better than like almost everybody else. So I don't know what to tell you. DAJ says the fact that we spent 105 million on energy and 65 million on a reject from Chelsea. I mean, if you just played maybe Rice in his normal position, he'd be fine. But I will always blame the club for spending 105 million on a player that excels in one particular thing, excels in winning the ball back at the base of midfield, maybe as a part of a two, and can carry the ball from deep, but you continue to play him as a second striker. To me, that is never going to be a failing of a player. There's just no way that you can sit there and say, well, Rice is just shit. Almost everybody rates Rice. Most major managers rate Rice. But I don't think any other manager would use him the way that Mikel is. So I'm so sorry, but and we have 3 DMs, by the way. And people are telling me that, oh, well, if Partey had just scored this one goal, if Rice had just scored this one goal, if we get to the point at the end of a game where we're talking about our DMs needing to put the ball in the back of the net, it's more about the attack than anything else and how we get into the final third. So, yeah. Boy says Rice has to play 6. The thing of Rice in the 8 is done now. He was good today, but I don't think we concede if he's at 6. Adrian says Rice is never progressive. Rice proved in the Euros as a deficient in passing. Rice is not better than Partey. 105 million needs a pivot partner. Yeah. Yeah. He probably does need a partner because chemistry is important in football. Because even if you say that Partey is perfect, why is it that he never has perfect games? Because this is your perfect player. He never has perfect games. Like, he has games where he doesn't play well. It's because he needs certain players around him. He needs the right chemistry around him as well. Every single player on the planet needs certain players around them to get them ticking, but only certain players are good enough to play outside of good environment and still get something done. Really, like, average players need a perfect environment, and if they don't have it, they can't perform. Like Nelly. But most players that are good can still offer something outside of a perfect environment, but every player needs the right chemistry around them to play well. It's not just Rice. Partey has never had to play outside of his position, by the way. Partey has always played in the right position. He's never been asked to play in a position that doesn't suit him. He's never had to play with Kai Havertz at left center mid. He's never had to do any of those things. So he's had it kind of lucky. And at right back, he does okay. I don't think he did bad today, actually. I think he just, they didn't need more than a goal. So he didn't really get cooked or anything. So I don't even think Partey was bad. But, I get that there's a certain section of the fan base that want Rice to be the main issue. But I kid you not, if he had went to Man City, no one would be talking about him being an average player. No one would be saying this. Kieran says, you seem happy we screwed up today. Does anybody think I seem happy? Hands up. Hands up. Does anybody think I seem happy? Hands up. Does anybody think I seem happy? Put your hands up. Put a hand in the comment section. There's 1,100 of you guys in here right now. If you think I look happy that we fucked up today, put your hand up for Kieran. Boy says, if our midfield couldn't find Saka, then we had no attack. We need creatives. And I was saying, like, halfway through the first half that I felt like we should have taken Jorginho off, put Rice in the 6, and put Wineri in as another pocket player because he's the only other creative player that we can rely upon, because I'm so sorry, Jesus is not going to do it. I know people still have this, like, feeling that Jesus can go back to what he was, but he literally came out there and shit the bed. Like, actually, the only creative player that we have off of the bench that we could bring in and offer something is Ethan. So, yeah. I don't see any hands. So, yeah, you're wrong. Like, yeah, Kieran says, "I told you so moment for you." So, yeah, 1,100 people are watching and nobody put their hand up. So, yeah, TV says Jesus is done. Boy says nonce. Diehard Gunner says drop Rice, play Marino. Yay says, yay, always great. Boy says, as a United fan, I think you guys are finished, and I think you need to give up on challenging for the league and just get top 6. United are on the rise in a few years. Jess, are you worried? Not about United. You guys are shit. So, as bad as we are, if you're saying that we're finished, you're even worse. So, I mean, you lost to us just like 2 days ago. So, we'll most likely still finish in the top 4 while you guys struggle to get to 8th or whatever the fuck. So, yeah. IEC says, doesn't seem like Jesus is even trying anymore. Needs to be sold ASAP. Yo-Yo says, everything is by design. There are no accidents in this team. Arteta wanted this team. He failed this team again. And I think, to me, one of the biggest problems that we have is that he brings players into the team and then plays them in positions that don't suit them, and he wants to overcoach them into something that they're not. And I feel, especially in the window that happened where Declan Rice and Kai Havertz came in, he decided he wanted to galaxy brain the midfield, and it started this ripple effect of fuck ups. You know, he didn't have to do any of the things that he's done. And if you bring in a 6 that usually plays in a double pivot, excels in carrying the ball from deep, and excels also at defending the back line, then you need to build a midfield around them, especially if you spend 100 million on them. Build a midfield that they can thrive in. But what he's done is he's done the exact opposite. He decided that Declan Rice was going to be this hybrid 8 and 6 and jump him around in multiple positions, make him better at scoring goals, get him into the final third more on the front line. And also, he was going to bring in Kai Havertz and play him at left center mid. And none of that has worked out. And we've been untangling that knot ever since. And instead of just, doing the normal thing, like putting Rice at the 6, making sure that you have a left center mid, like a Xhaka type left center mid that can kind of do all those things that everybody is dying for, because we shouldn't need a 6 to build up and create chances. I know that that's something that Arsenal fans have decided that that's like you have to have, but no other team requires their number 6 to be the creative beacon in their team. They require the DM to protect the back 6. If they do a little bit of extra shit, that's cool. But most people just need their 6 to protect. We need our 6 to be something completely different, because he doesn't require his left center mid to be a part of the midfield. So, and ever since then, it's been a trickle down effect, and we haven't been able to like untangle it fully and get to the real business. The real business, because he could have done an alternative route. He could have just, let's say we don't buy Declan Rice, because we have Declan Rice now, so you have to count him in. Declan Rice is not something that you can just ignore at Arsenal. He's a 100 million pound player, so he must play. There is no world that Arsenal can spend that amount of money on a player and not utilize them. So he's our marquee signing. So anybody that thinks that moving forward, especially with 2 aging number 6s, that Rice is not a big part of how we build the midfield, is smoking crack. He is a key to that. But let's say we never buy him and you just rely upon Partey, which would have been suicide anyway because he got injured right at the beginning of last season. But let's just play ball. All he had to do was buy a left center mid. He didn't have to buy Kai Havertz. That was unprovoked. It was unprovoked. He didn't have to do that. And then because it worked for a couple of minutes for him to play up front, he decided we didn't need a striker either. Everything that's happened has unraveled off of the back of a window where we just needed to buy attackers, really. And maybe a left center mid because Xhaka left. We didn't need to do any of that other shit. We didn't. So for me, it's just not, you know, it's just weird what we've done. And the two windows, like these last two windows have just been like, okay. Darwin says, big fan, longtime sub. It's not good enough. The midfield needs legs. Jorginho can leave, and Kivior is not good. Pressure on Arteta to make a change. We need change. Like, we need something to change. We need something. Like, I'm so sorry. I feel like we've hit a wall. I don't think we're getting any better. I feel like the last 3 years, we've kind of been different versions of 22-22, 2023, but not exponentially better where I feel like we're moving forward. We got defensively better last season, but we didn't really improve the attack that much throughout the fullness of the season. There are too many games where we drew blanks. So I don't know why we've hit this wall. Like, I don't really get it. I don't know why we've made the decisions that we made, but we need change. Like, we need something because right now it's just like what we're watching is not normal, and it's not just because we don't have Calafiori to play left back. And if we need Calafiori to do anything, then we're fucked. Because again, even if you think that Rice is the main problem, Calafiori didn't play for a certain amount of games, and Partey was at the 6. He's played majority of the games at the 6, and we still dropped loads of points. So you can't really just blame Rice for everything. Like, it's not just Partey, it's not just Rice, it's not just Odegaard, it's not just anyone in particular. The way that the squad has been built has left major holes and a lack of chemistry in certain positions. And it's like Arteta, like Yo-Yo said, Arteta wants this. He created this. This is what he wanted. He wanted Rice to play this hybrid role. He wanted Havertz. He died for Havertz. Like, he was his main thing last season. He brought in Calafiori because Calafiori was going to reinvent our left back situation, and now he's not playing. But he hasn't thought once to buy a left fucking wing. I'm tired. Ropro says, I think sporting director is needed. Michael Edwards spearheaded Klopp's success by getting Mo Salah instead of Brandt. Kevin says, as an Arsenal fan, I accepted that we cannot win a major trophy with Arteta in charge. This is his limits, and I think we should think outside the box now in terms of moving on from him. And I was just having this conversation with a friend yesterday that, you know, as much as Arsenal fans say that there's nobody out there are managers out there. And I'm not saying that we have to sack Mikel Arteta tomorrow, but the idea that we can't even speak about change at all, I feel like is weird. Because I've always spoken about change in a very open way, because I feel like there's been multiple circumstances within Arteta's tenure where there were major questions around if he was the guy for us. And we've stuck with him every single time. And some of that has been a positive, and I think some of that has been a negative. So, like, I'm watching Atalanta yesterday or the other day, and I'm thinking Gasperini doesn't look like that bad of a coach, but I know Arsenal fans would shirk at that. They'd be like, no way, we cannot bring in Gasperini. But Gasperini's won a major trophy. He's won Europa League with, like, just a couple of decent players. We can't forget that Arteta has a really good squad. Like, this squad is not that bad. It's not anywhere near as bad as what it's performing now. It still has gaps, but he literally just has Lookman. He literally just has Lookman and a couple of other, like, decent players. Like, we would not trade Atalanta's squad for us, but he's doing, like, they're on a nasty, nasty win run right now. And I'm just thinking there should not be a world where we decide that we cannot speak openly about Mikel Arteta and whether or not he's the guy to move us forward. Because right now, I just don't feel like this is the football that we should be watching, because it's not just about aesthetics. It's not effective. It's not effective. Like I said, if, you know, if I had walked in for the first time and watched that Fulham and Arsenal game, I wouldn't have known who was the team going for the title. I wouldn't have, because there was no gap. Cabello says, only if we play Ethan and Odegaard as a 10 and a 8 and Rice as a 6, but even then the system doesn't allow it. We just needed to buy a normal left center mid. I don't know why it's so hard for us to identify one. Darwin says the left 8, Rice can't play there, but Kai long term is not the answer. Why aren't we looking at Osimhen in January? What are your thoughts on Martinelli? Thank you so much for your super chat. Rice is a 6 and a certain type of 6. So, and people that are using Southgate's England as an earmark of how good Rice is, you guys are like not being realistic. Southgate builds his midfield like Arteta does, in unbalanced. It's always imbalanced. Arteta's midfield since Partey, Xhaka, and Odegaard has been imbalanced the whole time. He's never prioritized chemistry, dynamics, anything. He always does something that doesn't make any sense. Southgate's midfield is the exact same. Rice does not play bad with Mainu. As soon as Mainu came in, they were fine. And they'd be even better if they just doubled down on Morton or Angel Gomez, players that can pass from deep so you have that, but that player doesn't have to be your 6. But I do think you leave gaps at the back when you don't have Rice as your 6. Because right now we are leaking goals more than we should. And there's soft ass goals too. So I don't think Rice is an 8. I think he's a 6. And he's never played with a decent left center mid, not for a consistent run of games. But Osimhen in January, I don't know what's going on with that. My thoughts on Martinelli is we've needed an upgrade for a while. If you guys have been on the channel, I've stayed true to that. I don't feel like there's anything other than we need an upgrade there. If you think he's good enough or he's just needs the perfect settings, most players that are good enough can make it work or at least look decent in a team that's unbalanced or not perfect. Players that, really struggle outside of perfect settings and really need everything built around them to even look decent are not that good of players. They're not. Look at Saka. Saka can exist within a Southgate system. He can exist within a bad Arteta system, a good Arteta system, whether he has an overlap or not, and he's still dangerous. Martinelli is not. So we've needed an upgrade. I was saying it over the summer when the window closed and we didn't get anyone other than, and I'm going to say no one because we didn't, like Raheem Sterling is basically not getting anyone. Arteta sat there and said, oh, well, I want to give him more chances. That's the same thing he was saying with Emile and then sold him. He doesn't rate Sterling. And Sterling will not get minutes. So I just feel like we wait too long to make obvious changes. I don't know why it was Nico Williams or nothing. I don't know why it was Sesko or nothing, but those choices have shackled us to a left-hand side and a forward or a striker that really doesn't work outside of home games where we're playing well. TB says Sterling is just a body. Yeah, he's not good enough. Harvey says Sterling is better than Martinelli. Sterling hasn't done shit, though. Jamil says Eden Terzic is someone we should consider. Should we move on from Arteta in 15 to 18 months? There's a lot of complacency from players whose position aren't under threat, namely Kai. Let's see. Almost says Lee Gunner says you don't know anything about Arsenal. You're just jumping on the bandwagon. It's interesting because if I'm jumping on the bandwagon, then I want you to go back to 2021 where I was absolutely crucified by this fan base because I said that we needed to move on from Mikel Arteta. I've always been called Leanne Gunner or toxic. There's been a whole section of this fan base that creates content that does not talk to me anymore because I'm not fashionable to talk to, because I'm not positive, because I don't create content so that I get close to the club. So what bandwagon am I actually jumping on? I'm my own person. I'm one of the only people in this fan base that is actually unbiased and balanced. I don't create content for hysterics. I don't create content to get close to the club. I'm not like Lee or Northside that does it for clicks, and I'm not for the other part of the fan base that just wants to get close to the club. I will never work with Arsenal because they will never allow me to because I'm too negative. So what bandwagon am I actually jumping on? How is it 1 minute I'm too toxic and positive, but the next moment I'm Leanne Gunner? if the funny thing is, I don't talk about Lee and I don't talk about Northside. They talk about me constantly. They are obsessed with me and my platform. They are obsessed with the fact that I have a platform and I'm successful and I'm doing good things despite having I don't have to show my ass every single day to get clicks on my channel. And I also don't rely upon this. I'm also, you know what? I'm not going to go personal because I don't need to do that. I have a real life and I don't want to lose anything. I have things to lose. But the reality is that Lee is not important to me. I'm important to him. He wants to get something off on Terry and use me as some sort of like foil for that. And he's 40 and he needs to get a life. He is miserable, he is disgusting, and he is a loser. And I am not, and you will never have my life and you'll never have my platform. What bandwagon am I jumping on? And I want you to clip that and send that to him too. All you guys that come to this channel and, you know, do whatever for him, like, that's not me. You know, like, I'm not on that shit. You guys are on that shit. So, like, what are you going to do? You're going to come to my house, beat me up? You know, talking about you're going to drag your nuts across my face? You would never do anything to me. Like, be serious. Like, so let's be so serious right now. Like, like you guys know, if you guys have been on this channel for a long time, you guys know that I think 90% of people that don't fuck with me are jealous. Like, I genuinely do. And they talk about me on a nonstop basis behind the scenes and on their own channels to try to get some sort of notoriety for going in on the girl. Grow up. Seriously. Like, come on. Like, and I don't have beef. We Are the City says, y'all got to stop the beef. I don't have beef with Lee. On a normal basis on my channel, I don't talk about him. I don't think about him. He's not a part of my life and he's not important to me. If he disappeared tomorrow, it would not change my life. He's obsessed with me. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. So he has beef with me. And I guarantee if we were in the same room, he wouldn't say shit to my face. So let's be serious. Die Hard Gunner says, just ignore the Lee Gunners. Those are all waste men. They are, like, I mean, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not the one. Like, I'm really not the one. I'm really not. I'm not that type of person. I will address you. And I've ignored it for a long time, especially because a lot of people feel like they know me because they've seen me on my channel and they say I use people and stuff like that or whatever. Just because you guys see my relationship on here doesn't mean shit. You don't know me at all. Most of you guys wouldn't say shit to my face. You guys are nothing. And I'll tell you you're a loser to your face. Trust and believe. I'm about that life. I'm not just on these YouTube streams for, you know, like, I'm not. I've addressed people in person, by the way, about the things that they've said to me behind my back. So Lee Gunner is a loser. Are we not on the same page about that? DAJ says Lee does actually look miserable. Like, Jagoon says, just ignore them, Jess. We know you're real. So yeah. Anyways, Harvey's telling me to chill out. Sometimes you do need to tell people what they're about, though. Most times I don't address it, but sometimes you need to tell people that you're not the one to be fucked with. Like, and I'm really, really not. So yeah, but again, I'm not jumping on any bandwagons. In 2021, I was basically canceled by this fan base because I said that Arteta needed to go. So I'm not jumping on any bandwagons. And when I've been on channels like Dan's channel with Northside in particular, what I've always went like back on him about is that when we're going through a negative period, one of the things that I don't like is that we're not specific about the things that we're upset about. So at that period of time in like mid-season of last season, I don't think all of our players are shit is a correct statement because I don't think all of our players are shit. In fact, I think we have a very good squad and a lot of talented players. So if you say that, I'm going to go back on you because I feel like when we're in a negative period, people just say whatever and it just flies. And I don't think that's the right way to have an argument. And I feel like that's why as a fan base, we really struggle to have honest conversations because we just go in our really binary corners, and it's just everything is great versus everything is shit. And that's not true. So then what people hear is that, well, I'm Arteta in and I'm an Arteta sexual and all this type of stuff because I say, well, actually, Northside, our players aren't all shit, or our bench isn't as bad as you saying it is. And that's where the confusion in that conversation has been, because I've always maintained that if Arteta doesn't do certain things, we need to move on from him. Anybody that's been on this channel knows that. So saying that I'm jumping on a bandwagon now when there's a whole section of the fan base that doesn't fuck with me because I'm not positive enough is so ridiculous. But I'm also not going to show my ass like you guys because it's terrible. Like, it's embarrassing. I'm grown. you know? Um Luth fan says Curtis Shaw TV, football knowledge, Lee idiot, fake gunner. Yo-Yo says the appointment of a new director will determine whether or not Arteta will finally be put under pressure to develop. Exactly. Like, I've been saying this for weeks, that sporting director decision will be so important. And when Mikel said that person he was going to basically be choosing and that person needs to cooperate, I instantly got the this is probably going to be somebody that will not have the ability to move him on. Because the sporting director should be above the coach, but because he's the manager, it'll be somebody that's working with him or for him. And that's a red flag for me. We Are City says, Victor, what did I do? Don't know what you guys are talking about. Sapphire says, if we are to be prime Chelsea and Atletico, being lethal on set pieces, then we should at least win games and titles like them. We are something peculiar at the moment. We're kind of in between, Sapphire. We do the set pieces and stuff like that, but I don't think prime Chelsea or prime Atletico ever had a team without a clinical striker. I think they've always had someone, well, one they've always had world-class managers when they've done this, and they've also had key men, especially up front, that get the job done. And I just feel like most of the time when we score set pieces, who's scoring them? It's our defenders. It's not even our main striker. It's Saliba. It's Gabriel. It's Timber now. So I think that's what's missing, is that even if you were to call us Jose Mourinho, because of the way that we play, Jose Mourinho would never have a team that doesn't have a clinical striker or a bagsman in it. Never. He would always have somebody on the bench that could come on and cause damage. He'd have somebody in the starting 11 that causes damage, and he would have a system that doesn't just get shut down every season by the same thing. And I think not addressing mid blocks and having a system that's beholden to its left back is just ridiculous, So I think that's where the difference in this, the whole conversation with being a set piece and a negative side is that Atletico and Chelsea have always had clinical and devastating strikers, and we are halfway between a team that needs to create a million chances like we did in 2022 and 2023 to score goals, because that's basically what we were. Is we created so many chances that even our non-clinical forwards scored lots of goals because it was like we're so dominant. We're kind of halfway between that and then a team that wants to rely on set pieces, but you either have to do one or the other. You have to either be really open and kind of play free-flowing, attacking football with the group that we have, or you need to buy the clinical striker and make sure that you have devastating forwards and then play the way that we play now. But we're in between, like you said. So when you say that we're peculiar, I know exactly what you're saying, because we're neither here nor there. And I feel like our identity is a little bit lost now, and that's because of Mikel. I feel like who we really are is who we were at the back end of last season, but he hasn't been able to maintain that, and I'm not quite sure why. Levon, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, keep being you, Jess. Your channel does the best analysis. That's why I watch. Listen, I just try to be me, but sometimes you got to tell people what the fuck. Come on, let's be serious. IEC says, how is set pieces cheating? Harvey says, wherever Edu has moved to, we need to sell him back all the crap he made Arsenal buy. Nah, Harvey, you got to be so serious right now. With all the, we have so much information available to us. And when it's things that we want to hear, we're very much so eating that shit up. When we don't like it, we start saying things like Ornstein is not reliable. And we know he is. And one of the things that he said quite a few times, especially since we bought Havertz, is that Arteta has a lot of power in what gets done. And one of the big reasons why Edu is no longer here is because he didn't have a lot of power. It was really Inaki Kanya and Mikel Arteta and Tim Lewis and these guys running recruitment for Arsenal. So as much as it's like you want to blame Edu, Arteta has the team that he wants. This is the team that he built. And when we're playing well, he gets a lot of credit. When we're not playing well, it's, oh, well, somebody else bought these players. They work together, but I would really bet that like most of this team is what Arteta wanted. Because if it was up to Edu, we would have had a bunch of Kia Girapshin players in our team and a bunch of Brazilians. And we don't. We'd have Emerson Royale over Tomiyasu. We'd probably have Buendia over Odegaard or Madison or some shit. Like, so I think you have to give Arteta credit for the team that he built and hold him accountable, because when it comes down to it, whenever we're playing well, he gets all the credit. And some people act like Edu was holding him back. And I don't think Edu was doing anything but serving tea in some of those meetings. Let's be so real, Maine says, yeah, the argument with set pieces, it's stupid. I'm old enough to remember when we were told we always have to walk the ball into the box. Unpopular opinion, I don't think Arteta should be fired. And I'm not necessarily saying that he needs to be fired. I feel like we need a change. And that needs to be either with his way of thinking or, something, because we just need, after 5 years, I think we need just a zhuzh or a different thought process around what we're doing. I feel like things get stale really quick. 5 years is a long time. It doesn't feel like a long time for Arsenal fans because we're used to having managers for 20 years. But 5 years is a long time. Arteta is one of the longest serving managers in the Premier League right now. I think Pep only is like the longer serving. So it's a long time to have one way of thinking. And sometimes you need a fresh set of eyes to come in and say, oh, well, this is not right. And this is why the sporting director is the only thing we're really going to get, because Arteta's not going anywhere. That person needs to be able to come in and say, well, we have too many of these types of players. Let's get this, or you need that, because Arteta galaxy brains a little bit too much. He overthinks things. His left back is the key to his attack. No good manager has a left back being the key to their attack. Only Arteta and Pep think that way. So we're buying Calafiori to offset Gvardiol, but we don't have a striker. And so I just think the sporting director is the only chance that we have truly to make a change, because in my heart of hearts, I think Arteta could not win a major trophy this season and keep his job. I don't actually think he's going anywhere. And that's unfortunate. Basic says, I'm joking when I say the lockdown front line was better than this front line. Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Saka were better. That's crazy. Well, I want to say also that even at that point in time, and this is why you have to question whether or not Arteta can coach a consistent and deadly attack, is because even from having Aubameyang and Lacazette both stopped scoring when Mikel came in. And so maybe it's not just due to Arteta, because our style of play changed. But if you have Aubameyang in your team and you have Lacazette, you got two strikers, and both of them stop scoring as soon as you come in. And we have long periods of time where we're always, really, besides 2022 and 2023, in every single season outside of that one. Remember, Arteta's been here for 5 seasons. We've always had questions around the attack. So if you only have one season where you coach a good attack, then it might just be the case that you don't know how to coach an attack. You had Aubameyang, like, look at all the strikers that he had. Aubameyang, Lacazette, Kedia, Kai Havertz, Jesus. None of these guys would score goals under him, whether they were a bagsman or a false nine or an Nketiah, So I think there's a real, you could really question whether or not Arteta knows how to coach an attack. He knows how to coach a defense, but does he know how to coach an attack? He knows how to coach an off out of possession structure, but does he know how to teach the team how to just put the ball in the back of the net, or get us into positions where we do so, or bring in the right types of players. Because we do get into the box quite a bit, and maybe it's just the fact that we need a different personnel. But like watching today, what we watched today was just like, you know, 0.3 non-penalty XG is insane. With all the possession that we had, Fulham had a very easy day out today. That was one of the easiest games that they've played all season, just like Newcastle and just like Bournemouth. So yeah, Yo-Yo says, and Nketiah just is still shooting at Eddie. Boy says Arteta must know how to coach an offense. If people were convinced we didn't need a striker. DK says Abba was unbelievably inefficient for that FA Cup run. He would score off of 2 chances. No, unbelievably efficient for that FA Cup run. He would score off of 2 chances a game. Bro Pro says Arteta ruthlessness is only applied to goalkeepers and fullbacks, apparently. Isaac says, I would love to see us play more centrally, which was something that I was complaining about today because I felt like we just could not access central spaces. And there was one time where Declan passed the ball like in between the lines to Kai Havertz, and it was a really good pass. And Kai just could not trap the ball worth a damn. And like Bassi just ran through the back of him and took the ball. And I'm just like, but at least he had to defend. I feel like when you try to access central spaces, especially when you actually enter the penalty box from a central area, that's where defenders start to really panic. And I feel like we don't put them under enough pressure because we really exist on the outsides of the box and try to whip it in. And it's really easy to defend us, especially when you're, try to cross the ball to Trossard. Who is going to lose out a header to Trossard? You're trying to cross the ball into no one because Kai Havertz is nowhere to be found. He's not in the box. So it's like we don't want to take the risk to pass in between the lines and try to access central spaces. And we don't put players in that could actually hold the ball in those pockets, right? And I don't know if that's just because Arteta is so afraid to lose the ball in those areas, but we look vulnerable every single time Fulham nick the ball off of us, by the way. Like, I just feel like that's not the way to live. I feel like if you're the better team, you'll risk the odd chance from Fulham to get your game off. And I feel like we sacrifice our game to keep the other team from scoring. And every single time we do that, we end up with Bournemouth, we end up with Newcastle, we end up with these types of games, you know? And I just feel like we should be able to get our game off no matter what. Laveau says Martinelli is the most not so smart footballer, and I'm shocked he's Brazilian, has no flair at all, needs selling soon. Same with Kivior, half of that team, to be honest, and Arteta should have gone in 2021. I mean, there is a handful of players that aren't very good, you know, in the team, or are not as good as maybe we want them to be. So yeah, I get that. And somebody was telling me that I was, um, what's it called? Oh, they're at 2-2. Damn. People were telling me that I was scapegoating Martinelli, and I know a lot of people feel like Martinelli is being scapegoated, and I kind of understand why they feel that way because he's always a topic of discussion. But I think when you have a player that drops off so much, it's really difficult not to talk about them. And so, as much as people want to praise him for what he did 2 years ago, we're so far beyond that. And he was so instrumental to our attack back then. Because remember, we used to talk about Saka and Martinelli being like that tandem, that I think it's really difficult. And it's not just scapegoating. It's genuinely, I think people are shocked at the drop. And it's not just Arsenal fans either. The rivals that I speak to also just are like shocked at how weird Martinelli looks this season and how he looked last season. So I don't think it's necessarily like scapegoating him. I just feel Martinelli was so instrumental to what we were doing, and now he's so far off of it that it's like, it's really hard to not look at it. Yo-Yo says I've been on him since last season, but Martinelli's development or lack thereof says a lot about Arteta as much as it does the Brazilian. And maybe it's the case that Arteta's the wrong coach for Martinelli, because Arteta does really is cut from that same pep cloth that any players that have that maverick-like personality, about them gets pretty much like put into the machinery and comes out kind of like, a machine. Um, Comes out a little bit like of a carbon copy of someone else. It's like you just do this, you just do that. And Martinelli does thrive in a more chaotic atmosphere. And so maybe he just needed a different coach. I don't know. But Martinelli just may not be the type of player that Arteta would want. And that would make sense to me because he's not an Arteta player. I think people forget that Arteta didn't want him or he didn't bring him in. That's not an Arteta signing anyway, so it's a tough one with Martinelli, but we're stuck with him for the whole season and him and Trossard playing this, Trossard plays for a game and doesn't do well, and then Martinelli comes on and shits the bed, and then vice versa. Martinelli starts and then Trossard comes on and it's whatever. The fact that neither option really fills us with confidence, I think is more indicative of what's going on off the pitch than them, you know? Um, I almost feel bad for them now because it's just like we just go around in circles. It's like when Trossard starts, it should be Martinelli. When Martinelli starts, Trossard should be starting, but neither one of them are good enough. So yeah, AMD says every presser Arteta comes out and says we deserve to win. My ass, you bum. As long as the margins are tight, Arteta can always say that we deserve to win. And if we had just scored that one chance or we won't just marginally offside. I said this with the Bournemouth game that just talking about the Martinelli chance is so disingenuous because you only had the Martinelli chance. Why are we only creating one chance against Bournemouth away from home? Why are we only creating one or two chances against Fulham? We only really started playing when we knew that we were about to draw. Why did it take till the 90th minute for us to put in our first decent cross? So Arteta is disingenuous. That's why I don't watch his press conferences because I feel like people eat that shit up and they're like, yeah, the margins. And I'm like, most title winning teams, most of their games are not on the margins. They have many, many 90% of their games. They're just much better than everybody else and just beat them. They just do. Their games aren't on the margins. I would say this season, most of our games have been on the margins where we've just gotten a little bit extra luck. Like our XG isn't exponentially better than theirs. We're not playing them off the park. It's whether or not they nick the goal or we nick the goal. It's very close, because we get one or two chances. They get one or two chances. It's just who puts that one chance away. So, our game shouldn't all be on the margins because you know, Wolves, we weren't super dominant. We scored the 2 goals. They could have scored 1. Raya had to save us. Aston Villa was definitely on the margins. Spurs was 100% on the margins. Brighton was definitely on the margins as well. No, Brighton actually wasn't on the margins because we should have scored like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 in the first half. So I'll take Brighton out. Bournemouth was on the margins. Fulham was on the margins. Um, we know City and Liverpool were on the margins, very close games, nothing really in them. Most of our games were on the margins. The only games I feel like we outplayed anybody was Sporting, West Ham, and Nottingham Forest. Every other game was on the margins. Is if Raya doesn't make that save against Man United, we're at 1-1. So, you know, everything's on the margins. Shouldn't be that way. Bro Pro says sometimes football is just common sense, not 99 dimensional mathematics. That's what we're supposed to buy into. Sapphire says Martinelli was passed up by Man United on trials. Real Madrid, that's heavy on South American market, never gave him a whiff. That should tell you what serious recruiters don't rate him. Jonathan K says, why is Marino on the bench? This manager is misusing funds. Harvey says, Jess, what Arteta says in public and behind closed doors in the locker room is completely different. We don't know what he says in the locker room, to be honest. That's an assumption. You're assuming that he says something different and what he's saying in the press conference is not what he's telling the players. But I would imagine that that's probably what he is telling the players, is that we were really close because he believes in his style of play. If he didn't believe in what he was doing, we would change our style of play, and he does not change. So I kind of have a hard time believing that he's not telling them that if they were just not marginally offside, they would have won that game. Because if not, he would change his way. He believes in the style, so um, you're kind of guessing there, that what he's saying behind closed doors is different. I think it's probably the same. because this must be the style of play that he wants to play because we play it all the time. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and fly through um these player ratings. There's 1,600 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys smash the likes. Raya didn't have much to do. I saw people blaming him for the goal, and I just thought, I mean, I don't know what he was meant to do, but you know, his passing out from the back was fine. He didn't have anything to do outside of, I mean, the goal that they scored was Raul Jimenez just ran off the shoulder of Kivior and was in wide open space. Um, and this was, what game was it? Where the left hand side just, I think it was West Ham actually. When we played against West Ham the other day, where what's that boy's name? Somerville scored that goal off of that side, and it was chalked off for offside. It was kind of similar in that way where there's just a lot of confusion on that side. And then they just kind of ran through and it was like very like whatever. I feel like also the merry-go-round on the left-hand side is not helping us. That on any given day, it could be something different. You know, it could be Rice, it could be Marino, but mostly that left back is so could be different. You know, it could be anyone. And then you also now have the left-sided center back, and Kivior just switches off, you know. So Raya for me didn't really do much wrong, but equally it's like, you know, if you think he could have saved it, then you think he could have saved it. I really don't know. But I thought his passing was like okay, but it was like one of those games where it's like it really wasn't about the goalkeeper. It was just like we were up in their half for like 90% of the game and just couldn't do anything. So I'm gonna give him like a 6, which is just like a whatever, you know. You were there. You existed on the pitch. Um, let's see. Um, Partey, I don't actually think he was like horrendous or anything like that. The problem with Partey at right back is that he doesn't offer an overlap, which is not something that he's not doing. It's something that he physically cannot do. And we don't want him to do because if he's out of position, he's not going to recover. So I just don't think that. I mean, I guess at this stage, Arteta just feels like it's just better to put Timber on the left and put Partey at right back, but I genuinely feel like there's more times that it doesn't work than times that it does. Um, and maybe it would just be better to play Timber on the right and just play MLS, you know? But he never prioritizes dynamics. He always prioritizes experience. And in the end of the day, we just looked very like Saka had like no help, like none whatsoever. That pitch is like very narrow. There's not enough space, and they just kind of sequestered him to that right-hand side, that you know, it was very difficult for Saka, and I just feel like if he has some support, it would help, but you can't get support from Partey because you don't want him to overlap, right? So he really had like kind of like a nothing game, but it wasn't really like he only got torched once by Robinson, and I would imagine, you know, he's playing out of position. So 6 for him. He wasn't like horrendous or anything, but nothing good either. Should have scored as well. Saliba, probably the best player on the pitch. You know, when he said he wanted to win the Premier League, he meant it. I'm just so tired of our center backs being our best players, our defenders being our best players. It's just the quality and talent that we have in defensive areas is just so night and day to what we have up front, and it shows for the last 2 seasons. Saliba, Gabriel, Timber, even the guys that we don't want, the Zinchenko's and the Tommies. That's so much better than what we see coming off of the bench for us in attacking positions. It's just ridiculous. And so, I mean, if I'm Saliba and I'm Gabrielle, I'm fucking pissed because I'm just like, how much do you expect me to do? I got to score the goals and I got to defend for my life. You know, I got to be fucking perfect all the time, and they don't really do shit, you know? So I just feel like Saliba was probably our best player and our man of the match. And it's just unfortunate because he's had to do it two games in a row. And yeah, so an 8 for him. Goal, best player on the pitch, my man of the match. You know, Saliba is a wonderful player, but he, you know, if I'm looking, I want the Saliba of attackers up front. You know, it's just so imbalanced, so imbalanced. We're so we're so heavy at the back and we're light up front. It's just crazy. Kivior, listen, you did really well against Manchester United and then totally undid all that work. I mean, he had one moment where he whiffed the ball. I think he is mostly culpable for that goal. I just feel like as a defender, you should know where the striker is and running off of the back of you. And if Emil takes a decent touch on that other chance that he just completely just takes the wrong touch, he's in on goal and Kivior has no fucking clue where he's at. I just feel like he just, without the comforts of being at home and playing against a better, again, Fulham didn't even really have a lot of attacking moments. We weren't even under siege. It was just the one chance, and like he was rattled. And that's my biggest issue with Kivior, is that he's just too rattled. And you can't be lack composure at this level away from home at Fulham. Like, no offense to Fulham. Fulham is a good side. They're playing really well. It's probably the best I've ever seen them play. But you can't be rattled against Fulham. You can't be whiffing the ball against Fulham. You can't not know where the one person that you need to mark is. What's that? You know? It's crazy. He was just, whatever praise he got, he undid that. He really did. So unfortunately, personally, he's culpable for the goal for me. It's just so him. And beyond that, it was just wild for very just like undercooked, underbaked, just not the type of performance and our performances away from home have been so poor this season. And our best kind of thing last season was our away performances. We were almost better away from home than we were at home. And now this season, we're the same at home, but we're infinitely worse away from home. And a lot of it is these types of performances where you're just not locked in. And I just don't understand how you can show up to a Premier League game after not playing for eons, getting your first good performance, and then turning around and performing like that. I just don't understand. If we didn't have players out, I would be like, yeah, you got to get rid of him in January, because he's just not somebody that gives you confidence, is he? Timber, probably one of our other better players. I don't think that he performed poorly. I just feel he's just not a left back. The angles are off. He can't get his game off the same. He can't just do the things that he would normally do. We lost something on the right-hand side without him. Partey plus a really poor Odegaard gives you basically nothing for the side that is your bread and butter, is your lifeline. And so he did some good things, but he was just, he needs to play on the right. And Arteta needs to stop moving him to the left unless it's, a left-footed player that plays on the right-hand side and we need to lock him down and we don't have Tomiyasu. Beyond that, if you have a left back that's left-footed, I feel you need to play them, because you lose so much doing what you did today. Today it was just like, I don't know, it was rank. But I'll give Timber like a 6.5. Like, I don't feel like he was bad. I don't feel like he was outstanding either. I think there's a huge gap between Saliba and everybody else. So just a forewarning. Everybody else was pretty ass. Boy says Timber being moved left to right to left would inevitably mix him up, but we do this every single time. We do this every fucking time. Arteta just, instead of just playing players in the right position, he just does nonsense and plays players out of position to make sure that he has experience out there. And maybe it's just a thought process. Like, maybe I don't know anything. Maybe if we did play MLS, we get stomped, or if we played Tierney, we'd get stomped. But I'd want to see it over what we're seeing now, because it just throws off every dynamic, And so I still expected us to play better. I just don't think guys were even locked in. I just feel like the whole ambiance of us was off. It was so bad. The ambiance of us, like everything was just like bad. And if we had just lifted our levels even moderately, we would have probably won that game, but overall, just the dynamics are bad. Blaze says, why Zinchenko didn't start? He was injured. Maine says, I think Timber would play his normal position, but injuries. But here's my point, Maine, is just injuries doesn't like, I get what you're saying, but you had MLS on the bench, so you still had a different option. And this whole idea that like, well, if you play the kid, it's just going to go to shit. I'm just wondering if from the beginning your dynamics are right, meaning that you have a left-footed player that can pass down the line, the angles are better and Timber's on the right and can overlap, and maybe Partey starts in midfield or whatever. If we just have a better start than what we're doing now. So I kind of get what you're saying, like it's injuries, so you have to move him to the other side. But we're already seeing that moving Timber to that other side doesn't really work, so I don't know, whatever. Erwin says, Arteta yet again crippling the team, playing players out of position. Well, here's my thing is with the out of position thing is that I would like to see you not do it for once. Once. If it doesn't work, then fine. I'll never want to see it again. But because I've literally never seen him prioritize dynamics over experience or players that he trusts more, then I'm thinking that he's making a mistake. Because every time he does it, we drop points or we don't look good, So instead of just, would it have been better to keep everybody in their right positions? Let's just say, Partey stayed at the 6, Timber stayed at right back, and MLS played on the left. Don't you do less damage to the team than having multiple players in, like you had multiple players out of position instead of just one? Do you guys get what I'm saying? So, yeah, I just don't like it. Vic says Maresca 5 months in and Sanchez as a goalkeeper, Budia Shield, disaster class in defense is second in the table. Meanwhile, Arteta, yeah, I mean, they scored their third goal and they'll probably win this game now away from home at Tottenham. And the narratives are going to narrative, and I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like they shouldn't. Um if I'm a Chelsea fan, I'm bantering the shit out of us because even though they spent a lot, um, at this stage we should be so far ahead of them that it doesn't matter, but they're ahead of us, you know. Um, so we deserve all the banter that we get, you know. Um, T Pookie says we gave Arteta Wenger power without doing anything in football. Nasi says, I'm sorry, but Rice offers nothing in the 8. He can't play in the pockets, not good in the 6 or DM. He is the team for set pieces for 100 million. That's not enough. He's an average footballer. I mean, he has played 6 for us multiple times and played really well. In fact, earlier on this season against the best team in the league, he played 6, and that was probably his best performance. So, if you don't like Rice, that's fine, but I think some of you guys are disingenuous, I won't lie. Nostradamus says, yeah, we are aware of his size, but we are also all aware he doesn't pull up trees on a regular basis if that's Traore. Vic says Cole Palmer, 40 million, 50 GA, less than years. Havertz, 65 million. What does he offer? Same transfer. Yeah, it is what it is. If you just buy a lot of talent, it'll all work out anyway. I just think Chelsea buys a lot of talent, and as much as some of the stuff sucks, like some of the stuff hasn't worked out, they didn't stop buying. They just kept buying talent. Like when they couldn't get, because they were in for Nico Williams as well. When they couldn't get Nico Williams, they just went and got Pedro Neto. We couldn't get what's his name, Nico Williams, and we ended up with Raheem Sterling. I think that's the difference. Mosquito says, Jess, enough. We need players fit to win. I think Havertz, Jesus, Martinelli have run out of opportunities. We need strikers, not wingers. We need goals like others do. Feedback. I mean, tell Mikel that. That's not me. I mean, we went through multiple windows not addressing attacking positions. So, yeah. Midfield. I thought Jorginho was just like okay. He didn't really do anything wrong, but he didn't really add anything. I thought about halfway through the half that we could really just stand to drop Rice into the 6 and bring in Winieri and play with 2 number 10s and try to get in another attacker, another pocket player in there because I just felt like Havertz wasn't offering very much, and Jesus wasn't ever going to be the answer either. So you needed somebody else that could get in there, turn, and create space. And he just wasn't going to happen. But Jorginho wasn't bad. He wasn't good either. It was just like a whatever performance. He mostly just recycled possession. So I'm going to give him a 6. Contrary to what a lot of people are saying, I think Rice actually played well. And I think the overall consensus from other Arsenal fans outside, ones that don't like him, he was probably one of our better performers. He's just playing well in a position that doesn't suit him. And I think that's a sign to me of a good player, is that he's playing in a position that does not suit him in any way, shape, or form. In the way that Arteta has his left center mid, which is basically a second striker, he is playing in a position that doesn't suit him in any way, shape, or form, and he's still adding something to the team. He totally just derailed whatever we did against United, which was Declan Rice playing almost like in a double pivot in a deeper position. He totally just disbanded that and went back to his nonsense, and it was a harder watch. But this will go down as one of the oddest kind of transfers, because once you buy Declan Rice, then for 100 million at Arsenal, you need to play him in a position that suits him, and he's mismanaging him, and it's starting to really agitate me now. I'm just It's just doesn't make any sense, so but whatever. If Declan Rice was at any other team, if he was at Chelsea, if he was at City, they would find a way to use him in a way that suited him. I mean, Maresca's figured out a way to use Enzo Fernandez, a player that everybody thought was washed. It's just about the coach figuring out what's the best way to use a player, and Arteta is mismanaging the fuck out of out of Declan Rice. But listen, it's whatever now. We bought him, and he's on too big of wages and cost us too much to just be somebody that just gets pushed to the side. So, I just wonder what another manager would do. I feel another manager would just put him in the 6 and buy a top quality left center mid, and all of our problems would be solved. But, maybe, that's just too difficult, but whatever. Declan Rice gets a 7. I thought Odegaard was really poor today. Noticeably really poor. I just don't know I don't know what that was. It was just really bad. I don't know if he was just up with the baby or what, but he had like 4 good games, and then first half of Man United was poor. This whole game was poor. Just he didn't look. I mean, he looked night and day different to what he looked like against Sporting, and what he looked like against Forest, and what he looked like against West Ham. I just don't know how a player can go from what he looked like to this in such a short period of time. It's never like a slow gradual. It's just like off a cliff, and I just have the worst game I've ever had in an Arsenal shirt kind of thing. So he gets a 5. He needed to come off too. I wanted him to come off. I just never felt like he was going to do anything for us, which is unfortunate, because if he's not playing well and Saka can't get his game off, it's curtains. It's curtains. So yeah, Boy says, how did Jorginho start ahead of Marino? Because Arteta he's done the thing where he cannot disband from his original idea. He decided early on that he was going to Declan Rice works at the 8, and because Declan Rice is such a good player, he makes it work. But so now he's like, okay, I'm gonna play Partey or whatever, Jorginho in the 6, and so now Marino is on the side, because he won't just do the normal thing and just play Declan Rice at the 6 and play Marino at left center mid. We'll never see it, because then Arteta would have to admit that he made a mistake. TBG says, I'm tired of the same mistakes made by the manager: inability to access central zones, no transitional threat. Left half space still dysfunctional, refuses to play Rice at the 6, start Marino, 0.3 open play XG is sackable. Yeah, exactly. Like, him doing that would mean that he'd have to admit he got something wrong. I just feel like he sticks with things because he's like, it's going to work. He's fucking hard-headed, man. So, yeah, Rice will continue to play the 8, will continue to suffer, give up soft goals. It's just going to be continuous. It's just whatever. but this was not a good game for Odegaard, and I won't pretend like it was. Just because he's my favorite player. Like, he was really, really poor today, and it was a really disappointing performance. Saka, I thought next to Saliba was probably our next best player. It was basically just kick it to him. That was basically all we had in the locker. It was so bad. And he did some good things. It's just what I hate about our team is that nobody gambles. He puts balls across the box or, even to the front post, and there's nobody even testing the opposition. And I get that some of those deliveries aren't the best, but sometimes you make your own luck. And I just feel like we just don't have players that have like they don't sniff out goals. It's really Saka FC, and it's really fucking annoying. But I thought, like I said, besides Saliba, he was our best kind of player. I'm gonna give him a 6.5. I thought, obviously he almost saved us, but Martinelli was offside and whatever. But you know, he to me was not to blame for today. I think no overlap on his own. His, partner in crime was having a terrible day. Every time he put it across the box, there was no one even sniffing the ball. It's just sickening. It's just sickening. Oh my gosh, I'm getting text messages from people like, "Oh, you want to do shows?" Of course they want to do shows now because we're losing. Actually, let's go with Trossard first because he started. I thought Trossard was pretty ineffective. He had some really bad passes, I thought, where it just went to the opposition. Um, it was a very nothing game for him, 5. And then Havertz, I would say that if I had any sort of hope in Jesus, that I would give Jesus a run of games. Because I think Kai Havertz has been relatively poor since the international break after that we went for Bournemouth. What's it called? Not that we went for Bournemouth. After or before Bournemouth, I think he's been pretty poor since then and has maintained his pretty much his starting position and has been tested for it. And if Jesus was even remotely decent, I would drop Kai Havertz and play Jesus for like 3 or 4 games on the spin because Kai Havertz is offering very little. Yes, the ball deflected on him and deflected off of him and then went to Saliba, but that cannot be the only thing that you offer. And you guys are getting Ramsdale by Kai, where he does one little decent thing, and you guys are like, but he saved us. But what did he do for the rest of the time? Kind of walked around. He's also doing this thing where he doesn't really press for the ball or tries to get the ball. He just fouls the player, and that's getting really. I used to cuss in Kedia about that, where you're getting beat. So instead of just actually trying to get the ball, you just foul. I'm getting sick of that. He's not holding up the ball very well. He does like the odd decent thing every once in a while, but he's basically only in the team at this stage because Jesus is so bad. And not being able to switch up your center forward, I mean, I would do anything different at this stage. I just feel like he cannot the way that he's playing, he should not be able to maintain his position. But the fact that we don't have anybody that can come in is just damning. Like, play freaking, I don't know, play Trossard center forward, or I don't know, do something else. But this cannot continue. He is getting away with murder and no one's talking about it because he's somehow become like a very coveted player off of the back of 4 or 5 good months at the back end of last season. He has been poor since Bournemouth. I don't care what goals he scored. His overall play is just not good enough to maintain a starting position every single game. The only reason why he has it is because of Jesus. He's terrible. 5. It's just wild. Speaking of Jesus, I mean, didn't even try for that one ball that was put right on his toe. He should have got it. Passed the ball away to the opposition several times. I mean, what do you say? 5. Could be worse. Ethan had one really good, like, nice little turn. I wish he would have either started or came in, earlier or something. I just feel, we needed more creativity, and no one else is going to offer it but him off of the bench. So he gets a 6. I'm trying to think, did anybody else come in? I think Marino came on. Didn't he? Marino didn't really do anything. Don't have a picture for him. 5. So yeah, it was just a very nonsense day for us, to be honest. And um, you know, that was just nonsense. So the whole thing was just shit. Um, yeah, YouTuber says we're not going to buy anyone in January either, but I guarantee that new kit will be released. Nostradamus says Waneri at solid 7. Boy says 7 for Waneri. He looked the most likely to break a deadlock of all of our players, which is damning, but I get it. Isaac says -5 for Jesus. 1 out of 10 for Jesus. Blaze says Arteta love Havertz. This is I don't think he will bench him. Good luck with that. And he won't, but we just need something different um up there. Kai really has offered very little. Um yeah, he's just offered very little. Um and he's gotten goals like since the Bournemouth game, but that's just not enough. He rarely scores away from home as well in the Prem. What he has 8 chances against the top sides, he scored 0. These things, I mean, obviously it's because he's not a goal scorer, but I just think that it's not really personal against Kai Havertz. But I just can't believe we go into the season with that. Oh my gosh, my computer is going Arsenal, Fulham, video highlights. You really think I want to see that? Jerome says, I think boot bottling is a part of our club's DNA. We're drastically need to switch up things, or this will become a habit and will become a spicy Tottenham. I mean, at this stage, Jerome, we're not even bottling anything because we don't have anything. Last 2 seasons, we haven't even led. We're not bottling anything in these seasons. We bottled in 2022, 2023, but everything else, it's like we haven't had anything, you know? So, yeah. Brian says Spurs couldn't hold the lead, but we can't rely on Spuds. Back to the drawing board. Come on, Calafiori, come back, please. If we're begging for a fullback to save us, we're in trouble. I mean, I have people in my group chat talking about, but we have fullback injuries. I'm like, but yeah, but fullback injuries, it's not like we're conceding a bunch of chances or anything like that. We literally can't create chances. That can't be just because of our fullbacks. And if it is, it's because we built the squad wrong. Um, So yeah, Wake Up Mind says November, December is full of games. Why change constantly and confuse the players? Nostradamus says I firmly believe we will be bringing in a striker in the last days of the winter window. Um, yeah, I don't know, guys. We've gotten to a good point. We have like a very good foundation of a team that could win things, but we're just missing major things, and it's just very apparent. And every time we drop points, it's just like right there in our faces. So, yeah. And just last season, Jesus and Kedia, this season, Jesus and Kai. If you can't see that you need somebody that scores goals easily, I saw multiple times where we got the ball in the box and instead of shooting, we're turning backwards and recycling possession. We need killers. We need players in our team that can create moments out of nothing. And for the Athletic to come out and say that we knew that after the Bayern loss, and for us not to address that is why I never had any sort of excitement for this season. Because as much as I want to be delusional, I am not going to set myself up for disappointment. I'm so sorry, but I've never seen an Arsenal team win a title without a striker or a world-class attacker, outside of just like one, and Saka can't do it all. So, yeah, it's whatever. And like Boy says, the season was lost in the transfer window, but there's still 1,700 of you guys watching. I'm sure a lot of you guys are on Twitter. Um, Dogs are whining now, but I'm gonna go ahead and head out and enjoy the rest of my day. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. I know there was like a lot of like shit that happened on here, but you guys know me. I'm like one of those types of people that sometimes you just have to address things head on, and I just needed to at that stage. So hopefully that didn't like scare you guys off, but sometimes I just have to tell people like what it really is. I have some more super chats. Brian says, "Can we come to the collective realization that Martinelli and Havertz are average players needs upgrading?" Um, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know what, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know. how much longer, I just, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it now because they're in the team. But, these are the guys that we're, relying on to get us over the line. Darwin says, look at the depth. We keep relying on the fit 11. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it was just our depth that let us down today. I think it wasn't like Marino started or, like a lot of those players are our starters that let us down today. Odegaard is a starter, you know? Um, I don't think it was really about not having the depth. I think our starting 11 still has major gaps in it. Kai Havertz is a starter, you know? So I'm not sure it's about the 11. So not being able to change things off of the bench, I get that. But when you're starting off with what you start off with, I don't even think depth is our issue. I think we still have major problems in our starting 11, if that makes sense. Jerome says, when I say bottling, Jess, I'm talking about when we need to win to gain an advantage. We always find a way to screw it up. It's becoming a part of our DNA. And I don't know if you guys felt it, but you can always feel when Arsenal are not up for it. And I can't believe a team wants to win something if they show up to an away game against Fulham not ready to fight. Because I actually think that despite our imbalance and maybe not having quality in certain areas, we almost nicked it playing horrendously, you know um but it wasn't like they came out there and were running hard and were showing themselves and playing good football. And they were losing battles. They looked weak, they looked tired. I don't know if they were sick. I don't you know and it's if we start off a game like that, I'm tempted to not watch the rest. Because my group chat was saying, like, from basically the first 5 minutes, that once Fulham scores their goal, that's it. And that's essentially what happened. So I don't really understand why this team can't get up for away games now. I don't really understand why this team has had so many games where they look like they can't be asked or they don't have any motivation or whatever. But I don't think this team actually, one, feels like they're going to win the league, or two, wants it enough. So, yeah. But the bottling thing, getting an advantage, you can't show up to Craven Cottage like that and expect to win the league. It's just not, that's just not how you do. That should be a formality. You should go up there up against a difficult team and beat them 2-0, a very professional win like we were last season, and just not Fulham, but most teams. But we were just like, these guys don't look like they're gonna win the league. That's why I'm like looking at Arsenal fans. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but like, do you think that they think that they're gonna win it? Because child, they look. I don't know. I mean, Rice was talking about after the Man United game, don't count us out or some shit like that. And 3 days later, they pull off this. They're so unreliable. Jordan says Arteta should not have subbed the starting players off when we were cooking. When were we cooking? Jerome says, Jordan, yes, if Saka doesn't show up, we are unlikely to score. Um, Irwin says, Kai having to hold up play is a myth. 6'4" and weak and timid on the floor after every challenge. Guy just pisses me off. Cabela says Martinelli should learn from the Chelsea wingers in terms of directness and dribbling 1v1. I don't think he has that in his bag, honestly. Nostradamus says we need a natural one position player. The negatives of having a versatile player is seen before your eyes. Abdul says, I just joined now. When you say we need a change, what do you mean by that? When I say we need a change, I'm saying that we need a new, fresh set of eyes that can look at the foundation that we have and take us forward. Whether that's from the sporting director or the manager or whatever, I think it's most likely sporting director, because let's be so real, Arteta's not going anywhere. But something needs to change. This season has not gone the way that it's supposed to. We should not be starting off seasons like this. We need a trip to Dubai again. So when I say we need a change, I'm saying that what we've been doing, recruitment, stylistically, the way that we're playing tactics, none of that is working. It's not getting us over the line. So somebody needs to change it. And I know that, people want to hear Arteta out, Arteta out, Arteta out. I think from my perspective, because I know in my soul of soul that he cannot win a damn thing and stay, that I'm hoping that a sporting director comes in with a fresh set of eyes that can just get us the talent that we need. Talent can paper over a multitude of cracks. Arteta is a good enough manager that if he just had a good, decent striker, he'd probably win much more games. It would paper over the cracks of him making mistakes. But the fact that he's making his job harder by making his whole soul creativity based on a left back, no striker, Martinelli and Trossard, is just ridiculous. So when I say we need a change, I'm just saying, like, after 5 years, 6 years, 5 years, whatever it is, that's a long time, and sometimes you just need to shake things up. I'm not afraid to have the managerial conversation, I never have. Said that at the beginning of the show. I've never shied away from it. I've been canceled because of it in this fan base because I said in 2021 he should have gone after that really bad run. I just feel like we do not have time to continue on in this, whatever this is. We have a very good foundation that quite literally just needs 2 or 3 players. 2 or 3, maybe even just 2, to close up whatever this gap is and keep us from playing on the margins. And I think some of our players would be more motivated and more confident away from home at Craven Cottage, away from home at Bournemouth, if they looked up front and saw a striker that they could kick the ball to that could just kick it in the back of the net. You know? So we just need changes. And whether that's coaching or recruitment or both, something needs to change because this ain't good enough. Social Join says, Mikel ain't the guy. I long accepted that. This guy's not interested in attacking football. Mid-table player, mid-table coach strategy. Blaze says players and especially manager need change of mentality. Mata says, got to get Kai and Partey some header practice. Victor says, I hate when the players say all of those trust us or we're hungry to win phrases and then they drop performances like this. It's so frustrating. I never listen to what they're saying. Boy says, we need better players. We just have a well-coached collective with some elite players sprinkled in. We really need we've needed it for a while, that X factor, that ability to change something out of nothing. Those things are so important and we just don't have that. So yeah, New Music says Arteta will end up losing his job due to stubbornness. Jerome says the problem is Arsenal needed to do better in the summer and they didn't. They will need to do something in January, but won't do anything. We never do what we need. Blaze says soon it will be 5 years Arteta is manager of Arsenal. And it's a short says we need to overhaul. I don't even think we need to overhaul. I really don't. I really don't think we need to change the whole thing. And I would hate for somebody new to come in and just scrap it because I think we're close. I really do. I don't think we're that far off. I think as bad as we've played to still be where we're at is remarkable. We've had a very poor season by our standards. We really have. By the standards that we set over the last couple of years, we have been poor for about 80% of the season. And we're not like in 8th or 9th or 10th. We don't need an overhaul. We need to stop ignoring obvious gaps in this squad. It's so obvious. Like, there's no reason to scrap the whole thing. All you need is like 1 midfielder and 2 attackers. Is it that hard to get that? We've bought like 8 left backs in the time that we could have bought just 1 striker, and we haven't done it, you know? So that's why for me personally, I don't think it's an overhaul. I think that's too much. That's over the top. That's OTT. We don't need that. But the difference between us winning trophies and not is about 2 to 5%. And I think that 2 to 5% like exists within Arteta, whether or not he can change the way that he approaches games and the way that he manages his players and getting balance in the squad and talent at the top end of the pitch. That is the difference between us winning shit and not. And right now we're just not there. Cabello says, I'm really disappointed in Martinelli's offside. He was the closest player to the touchline. He had a better view of seeing the last defender and trying to be onside. I mean, listen, Martinelli is not my hill to die on. I've been saying that we need an upgrade for a long time. We shouldn't be in a position where that's our one chance anyway. So yeah, but I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. I'm just, yeah, that would have been such a lucky kind of like get out of jail free card had we had scored that goal, and luck wasn't on our side today. Wake Up Mind says, don't need to change everything, just don't need to keep changing things when it works well. Timber was playing well at right back, why change him to left back, and why is Partey at right back again when it didn't work out? Arteta thinks he has this like super malleable team, but he really only has like 2 looks. He has players that he can bring in amongst the starters and get it done. But he doesn't have this whole where you can put Partey at right back and Timber at left back and we don't see the drop off. He doesn't have that. Like, so he needs to just bin off those ideas and, instead of changing 2 positions and having 2 players out of position, just trust the squad that you built and play one of the left backs that were on the bench because you had 2. You had 2 on the bench that you could have used. And I know Tierney hasn't played in a long time, but I genuinely feel like Miles Lewis-Skelly would have been a much better option than just doing what he did. Social Jordan says we need a dominant trait players with freakish ability. They all have to be forwards. They all got to be forwards. Issa Short says Chelsea squad is crazy. They're better. They're way better than us. They definitely built a team that has a lot of talent. That's for sure. And again, you just need to buy talent. Stop going through windows and buying left backs and goalkeepers and just buy talent in the positions that matter. Chelsea concede goals all the time. They do. They concede goals all the time, but they have players up front that make the difference. And we went through 2 windows and didn't do it. We have to hold that. Paul says Edu set up Arteta by giving him dead players, Jesus, Zinchenko, and Sterling. Do you actually think that Edu got those players without Arteta saying yes? Maine says overhaul is definitely not necessary. A striker is for sure. And honestly, Winieri should get more minutes. Jerome says exactly Dallas Square in 1971. It's rinse and repeat. I believe it's by design. Do enough for top 4, but don't get enough to win. Nacho Jonas says Magalhaes is the glue in our team. Jordan says, Jess explained something to me after we scored the equalizer and start getting on top of Fulham. We were making some nice triangle passes. Why did we revert to spamming crosses? I just don't feel like, and this is why when people were like, oh, well, it's the lineup, the lineup does make it more difficult. Like the lineup that we start off with informs me whether or not it's going to be an easier day or a harder day. Today, I already knew it was going to be a hard day, but could that team with those players not be able to make those triangles and push forward and create chances just because that, we didn't have a left-footed left back and we had Partey at right back? No. We just chose not to play until the 60th minute. We could have started playing way before. We just chose only to play when we just felt like we were going to lose. And Arteta has instilled in this team a level of malaise where we keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I think it's marketed as like not panicking and having control, but it's more just like us kind of like, oh, well, it eventually will work. Stick with the game plan instead of being desperate to equalize. Like any normal team would be desperate to equalize right away, but Arteta has instilled this like very slow kind of like it'll just play our game kind of thing, and it doesn't work. So we didn't actually start playing until about like the 60th, 70th minute. We didn't really start playing until around then. And after Saliba scored, the same players that weren't playing well before that perked up a little bit. The starting 11 was not great, and it made it a more difficult game than it needed to be. But these players were not locked in. They were not trying to the best of their ability until it was damn near over. And Arteta needs to cut this like, oh, we'll just be patient. I like the team that used to respond instantly. That to me is better than what we're doing now. Because what we're doing now is how we get the Bournemouth and the Newcastle result, where we're passing around in a horseshoe for 80 minutes. It's ridiculous. I remember in 2020, 2021, we did this. If we conceded first, it was over. We've reverted back to that. And I don't know why Arteta coached the response out of us. We used to be able to respond quickly. I don't get it. So, yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's not just the lineup. Sometimes guys don't show up. Boy says, have to sign the talent. It's just that simple. Mata says Arteta can't deal with X Factor personalities. It'll fracture the squad probably. Anush. Sorry, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. Get Kudus and Seshko. Big says, nah. I cannot believe Chelsea are above us in the table. They was 12 2 seasons back. Last season, we watched them drop points to Sheffield, and then, man, this is on its own a sackable offense. I mean, it was coming. I mean, I remember being on Football Terrace streams like 2 years ago, and when we first challenged, they were saying like, "Well, don't you need to win it this season because everybody will catch up?" Everybody's catching up now. It was always in the post. If we didn't win in the season where it was just the season where it was just us and City, it was going to be so much more difficult because the way that these teams are throwing money at it, they were going to eventually catch up. And Chelsea's the one that caught up. And I'm not surprised that it's them because as much as they got the coaching things wrong, they never really got the talent wrong. They bought talented players over and over. They've had a couple of duds, but we tried to get Caicedo, they got Caicedo. We were pissing around with Pedro Neto for 2 years, they went and got him. They bought Cole Palmer, you know? They don't go a window without buying someone. They have guys on their bench that we don't even like. There's guys that we don't even know about that are on their bench, So when we went through a window after finishing 2 points behind City and brought Raheem Sterling, Calafiori, and Marino. They finished 12th, and they were buying up all the talent. So, and they have guys that are still playing in Brazil that are better than the players that we have in our team now. So it was always in the post that City would fall down and then other teams would take advantage because we didn't take advantage when we were meant to, because we were waiting for the perfect opportunity. Liverpool are 6 points ahead of us or some nonsense with a game less played. Chelsea are ahead of us, and we're struggling to beat teams like Fulham and Brighton and Bournemouth. And this is why when I was crashing out 2 years ago about us not winning, last year about not winning, and people were like, you're overreacting. I was like, because you guys don't understand how football works. It doesn't work the way that you want to. You have to take advantage when you have the point. You have the time. It was never going to be the case where none of those teams were ever going to improve. Chelsea are under no pressure right now, by the way. So they were supposed to like maybe finish 4th, and they could very well be in the title race. They're under no pressure. So, and all the pressure is on us. The only loser that comes out of not winning like the league this season is us. So people need to get right with that. Cabello says Saliba was actually babysitting. He had to do cover for Party and Kivior, and he still scored. If we don't win trophies, he should leave for Madrid. I wouldn't blame him. Mr. Happy says our attacking line is so mediocre. I'm fuming with Edu and Arteta, to be honest. Mata says, don't worry. Marquinhos will say this in January. Victor says, this is what happens. We do this next season thing as if we're the only team that develops. Now we see what happens when you don't refresh your squad and take your chances. Exactly. This is why when people were like, oh my gosh, you're being so dramatic. Oh my gosh, we're so good. I told you so. I told you we were good, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you guys just don't understand how football works. Everybody else gets to improve. They're buying talent and we're not. We're buying left backs and goalkeepers, and they're buying attackers. The attackers that we want, they're getting. They get Pedro Neto, we get Sterling. We take their leftovers. They buy the player that, if we had Pedro Neto in our front line, do you think we'd be fucking struggling right now? This is what I'm saying. It's like people don't understand how football works, but they tell you that you're just crashing out for no reason and being dramatic. Well, this should be your, like, nobody, I'm so sorry, anybody that was pushing that whole, like, well, eventually, like, it'll come to us, it's fine, we're on the right track. Anybody that was doing that should be, like, shitting their pants right now, because exactly what they said was going to happen, like, the opposite happened. City are bad, but Liverpool and City look like the most likely to win the title, and we're off it. Nostradamus said having 2 players hungry to score 20 plus goals per season in all comps is needed. Mr. Happy says regarding the transfer market, we let perfect to be the enemy of good. Social Join says we have been in a top 4 battle. Everyone knows how to play us. There's no data on Maresca slot, and they are keeping it simple and making the simple choice. New Music says if you've been watching Arsenal for years, then you knew that this was going to happen after the last few transfer windows. Redmond says Arteta is not the problem, but the solution. Lord. Nostradamus says, you all know Neto would be injured for us 7 months if we signed him. New Music says we haven't made the right decisions to improve the squad. Theo says we let Arteta and Edu go year after year without buying offensive talent. Stoke City jokes, but I genuinely don't recognize my club. Being so scared of investing in attackers is so anti-Arsenal. Top 4 is still on. Boy says it's a failure if we're in a top four battle. Top four should be nailed on by now. So yeah, it's just one of those where I'm like, it can never be me. I can never be like, I'm just so sorry. I don't want to be, you know, saying that like I told you guys that this was going to happen, but I knew it was going to happen because this is how football works. Things pass you by if you don't take your opportunity when you have it, like Leverkusen did with the Bundesliga. They had a very similar season to what we had the first season, and they took advantage of it. They can always look back and say, "We won that shit." So whatever happens now is like whatever. They can fall off a little bit. The pressure just mounted even more when we bottled it, and it's mounted even more. And these guys are crumbling under the pressure, and the club isn't doing anything to mitigate that pressure by bringing in more talent that makes them not only feel like we're serious, but help them on the pitch. And it's just whatever, man. Like, I love this club and this team, these players. I haven't liked a team in a long time, but we've had many a project go by the wayside because we didn't just finish it. And this one is looking very, very similar. Very, very similar. So yes, we are still in the title race, but we're not. It's looking bleak. And what I was saying this earlier, what I mean by a change is we need a different ethos, a different set of eyes, a different something. This is not working. And so, as much as we have, improved over the last like 3 years, the first 3 years, the last 2 we've stagnated, and I feel like we've hit a wall. And so if it's not with the coaching staff because they're all getting new contracts and Mikel is set for life unless he leaves, then the sporting director needs to be somebody that's serious. Because I'm so sorry, but this cannot continue. Like, people were literally saying, when I see people going, take Kai Havertz off and put Jesus in, I know we're fucked because Jesus is not ever going to be the answer. But we're just swapping out bad options for bad options, especially in center forward and left wing. So for me, that's a failure on Arteta and recruitment. And we just need to buy the players that we've needed. And Arteta needs to stop doing the same shit over and over again. It's just, I'm tired. I'm tired, Like, I'm actually fatigued. Like, very fatigued by like saying the same things every year. We need X factor. We need attack. We need to play free flowing football. Why is it that we can't pass between the lines? Why is it we can't, access central spaces? Why are we hoofing crosses? Why do we look so like funeral football? I'm tired of saying that shit. We said this already, So, but we definitely need a change. And I don't know. It needs to be drastic in the summer. So, like, certain players have to go. Zinchenko being injured after one game, by the way, after 60 minutes of play, is egregious. He needs to go, like, instantly. Like, it's just crazy. New Music says Jesus doesn't even see himself as a goal scorer. What are we doing? Jerome says, Jess, this has been going on for 20 years. It's not reasonable to say that this is a choice by the club. It is not reasonable to say that this is a choice by the club. Willow says, I have started to believe we can't win the league or a CL with Arteta. He is just not that guy. I would say, this is what I would say about that, is that if you were not questioning it at this stage, then I don't think you're a real fan. I think any real fan would at least ask themselves the question, do I think that Mikel Arteta is the guy to take us to major honors? Because right now, I mean, the guy's not even getting to finals in domestic cups. Let me just put that out there. Not even getting to finals in domestic cups. So, we're talking about somebody not even getting to finals, going out of domestic cups sad most years, and even Europa League. To somebody that we actually believe now is going to win the Premier League or the Champions League with this team. And that's why I'm like, if you're not even asking yourself the question, or you try to tell people that they are stupid for asking the question, how could you even question? I just don't think you're being honest. Because any honest person, I think, would at least question it. Now, if you come out with a different response, then no, I kind of get that. Like, maybe you do believe in Mikel, but right now, I don't see very much evidence that he's the guy that's going to take us to major honors because, again, he's not even getting to finals. We're not in semis. We're not really competitive, like far down. Like we're just very, last couple years, we challenged for the title, but we missed out twice, you know? Jerome says, that's the problem. It's always next summer with this club. The Emirates was meant to be promised land, but it's the land of unfulfilled promises. Jordan says Jesus' body language when he's on the pitch is so depressing. He doesn't even look like he wants to play. And I mean, listen, he was the one that was saying that he was going to, snatch the chain off of Kai Havertz's neck. And he's not really living up to that. He looks stressed in preseason, which I just feel like as a goal scorer, you should be relaxed. And he looks very worried all the time and like afraid that he's going to miss the chance, and he doesn't believe in himself. So once you tell yourself that you're not really a goal scorer or whatever nonsense he said on Brazilian TV, you're done, so I like Jesus. I think he's a good player. I just feel like we've waited 1 year too long to get rid of him. He should have been gone this past summer. We should have replaced with an actual striker. And now we'd be playing with the striker that we need, and Kai would be on the bench, right? And maybe we'd have a different outlook. So we just waited too long. We actually should not be talking about Jesus, you know? Um, we shouldn't be talking about Jesus at this stage anymore. Cabello says, just genuine question. In what position should we get the X factor from? Because I think left 8 should be converted to a 10 and Odegaard overall 8 instead of right side 8. I don't actually care, to be honest. I just think we need it. It could be left wing striker or in midfield. My ideal scenario with that, because the reality is we're not building the midfield around Partey, Jorginho, and Marino. All of them are on the wrong side of the age bracket. So they're all squad players or, starters for now until, a year or so from now. So, it's going to be Rice and Odegaard +1. And the +1 cannot be a filler. It has to be somebody that offers true, like, quality. And it needs to be somebody that probably adds what they don't have. That's how you balance out a midfield, is you look at what you have, and then the person that comes in needs to be able to do what the others cannot. What does Odegaard struggle with? He doesn't have enough goals. And he's probably not the most creative. Let's say he's not going to get 20 assists a season. He's not your Kevin De Bruyne. So identify that player. Identify that player that's not afraid to receive on the half turn, somebody that, can progress the ball in multiple different ways through passing, through ball carrying, is not afraid to take a shot, does all the things that Odegaard doesn't do, but complements Odegaard as well because they're yin and yang. Somebody that allows Declan Rice to slide into the 6 without you losing all your progression. So that has to be somebody that can drop a little bit deeper as well and receive the ball. So it can't be a pocket player like Emile or a pocket player like Fabio Vieira, So I feel like that X factor can come from left 8. That, and idealistically, it should be more than one. Idealistically, we shouldn't be talking about one position where we get X factor. We could use 2 or 3 X factor players, if not, you know what I'm saying? So I don't actually feel like it has to be any particular position, but at this, like right this second, I would love to get a striker and a left wing because I actually believe in Wanyeri. Social Join says the left-hand side is low touch. You are better off getting a solo guy that forces people to pass to him. Get just like a dominant trait like Leao. You have to pass to a guy with his traits. One thinker says we wasted money, 100 million on Rice, and he's not good at 6 or 8. He's just a passion merchant and a player that breaks down play. That's it. I mean, what is a 6 supposed to do? He's supposed to break down play. Jerome says, Jess, in a dream window, give me 3 players or signings in January this summer. So hard to think about stuff like that right now. But I mean, a dream window, I'd go get Reinders. I'd go get Kvaratskhelia, and then I'd go get top level striker, whoever you can think of. That's like in a dream window. In a more realistic window, I guess I'd bring in at least like Matoma and, Isak or something. I don't know. Cabello says, I think with the current system, let's forget about X factor coming from midfield because the current system and the current players. Well, he said your dream window. So when you say dream, you're not talking about reality, are you? Nostradamus says Rice should have been seen as a Gibraltar player. I don't think he's Vieira. And again, misprofiling players and then getting mad when they don't do the things that they've never been able to do is so lame. Like it's like when I hear people saying, "Well, Jorginho doesn't have the legs." I'm like, he's never had the legs. He's literally never had the legs. So why are we getting mad that he got ran by? That's always going to happen with him in the game. So if you want a different player, I understand that, but the trying to say that Rice is not a good player, is not a top quality player, is so disingenuous when most top teams wanted him, when he's really good and elite at one particular thing. Arteta just doesn't use him for that thing. And this is not the first time that Arteta has misprofiled players. Most players in midfield, he's not done well with. Outside of Xhaka and Odegaard and Partey, most of the players that he's had in the midfield positions have not done well. And not all of it is just because they're not good players. It's some of it Arteta just can't get anything out of them. Blaze says Arsenal fans blame Rice, Martinelli, Trossard, but won't question Arteta because it's low-hanging fruit. Theo says Osimhen is on loan in Turkey. Did we even inquire for him? Meanwhile, we're stuck with Jesus and Kai on $500,000 a week. IEC says in an Arsenal window, we get a left back again. Exactly. Jordan says nonsense. Rice is a quality at 6, but he is not being played there. Arteta put both our 6s out of position. Rice as an 8 and Partey at right back, our 2 best DMs. I mean, he just needs to just prioritize dynamics and stop the nonsense. I don't know why he doesn't want a top quality left center mid. I don't know why he is so against a quality left center mid and a quality striker. He's like allergic to it. It's just play players in the right position and they'll thrive. The more simple our game is, the better we play. Most times. Most times if our game is more simple, it's better. But yeah, it's at this stage, if you think Rice is the one holding us back, then for you, Rice is holding us back. Fine. Cool. Think that. Rice is the reason why we're not able to score goals. Fine. Mr. Happy says, would you try to sign Jokeris and Jan Jess? Maybe, I would try to sign somebody. If it was up to me, I wouldn't even be in this position though. If it was me, I wouldn't be in the January transfer window trying to do stuff. I would have been signed the striker. I would have had my team done already. But Jokeris and Jan, I mean, I would sign anybody that could give us X factor, so Jokeris would be an option, for sure. Jerome says, football is simple. Put your best players in their best positions and work from there. It's really not hard. I guarantee I've always said this to my friend, I just want to see, even just for a day, what a different manager would do with this team, how different it would look. I guarantee it would look different. Like, not even just like just sacking Arteta, but I just wish that I did, like, just for one day, just to see another manager with the exact group of players, what they would come up with. Because tactics wise and formation and all of that, and how it would change. Because I guarantee it would not look the same. I guarantee it. Period. Guarantee it would look so different. Even like just the dynamics would be different. Some of the things that Arteta does, I'm like, ain't no other manager would ever do that. Except for Southgate. He's the only other manager I think that prioritizes names and experience over dynamics. Even though it's proven time and time again that balance gets you what you want. Boy says, if it were me, I would have never signed Jesus, but here we are, bringing on Jesus to break down a deadlock. Social Join says that what left side do we have? We don't maximize the pitch width. We just play on the right, and it's easy to defend. Mr. Happy says we are no top left wingers available in Jan. Better striker options available. Jordan says this team status playing attacking football and for some reason slows down. I don't get it. Can I be honest? My ideal scenario from now until the end of the season would be identify the sporting director, try to convince Saka and Saliba to get on new new deals before the end of the season, for sure. That would be my ideal scenario, with or without a sporting director. Identify a sporting director, get them in the seat before the season ends. So that, because if we're waiting for the sporting director in the summer, you guys do realize that our summer window is going to be fucked. You realize that. So get the summer window, get the sporting director in before the summer window, get Saka and Saliba on new contracts if you can, ASAP, and start fresh in the summer. Make sure that you finish in the top 4. And that's it. Like, identify, like, look and see what you need. You know, this season for me just feels very much so done in terms of the major trophies. We're not looking like a team that can win one of those major trophies. So try to win a domestic cup. Make sure that you are in the top 4. Get Saliba and Saka on new deals if you can. I think Saliba and Saka will sign new deals, though. I don't think I've heard rumors of both. I think they're both going to sign new deals. I don't think they're going to leave us. And then get a new sporting director and start fresh in the summer. Start talking to people about getting rid of some of these players, because we can't do anything until we get rid of people too. So I'm looking towards that, because this season, doing January just feels very like, what are we going to do? Bring in Evan Ferguson on a loan? What is he going to do? Blaze says, yeah, Saka, Saliba, and Big Gabby need to sign new deals. Boy says, Saka, Saliba, Odegaard, Rice, Magalhaes, Timber, MLS, Wanyeri, the only players I really care about having their contracts refreshed. Everyone else can be replaced, to be honest. MV says, isn't Saka already on a new contract? He needs the money that Jesus is on. That's what he needs. He needs to be our highest paid player. He's not, and he needs to be. Him and Saliba need to be our highest paid players. The fact that Kai Havertz and Jesus are our highest paid players is a joke with what they offer. So Saka, the reason why we gave him I think that new contract bump is so that we had the room to give him this new contract that we're going to need to give him. And it needs to be given to him now. Him and Saliba need that new contract now. They need to be given £250,000 a week base. And we need to get rid of Jesus, because you can't get rid of Kai. You have to. Those are the only things that matter to me from now until the end of the season. Sporting director, Saka, Saliba, Gabriel, new deals. That's it. Everything else is a wash for me. Like getting Evan Ferguson, getting some young kid. Like, what's that going to do? You Never Walk Alone says Arteta unfortunately needs to pull the plug on Martinelli. He's a West Ham winger. Another year too long on a player that was obviously hitting a wall. 1 year too long on Jesus, 1 year too long on Martinelli. You just need to move on and bring in top quality players so that we're not relying upon them. And that's not to say that Martinelli is the only reason why we're not where we need to go, but let's be so real. Like, he hasn't been good for 1.5 seasons now. Boy says, can't believe how badly we fucked up the transfer window. Look at the state of the league. Blaze says, Havertz and Jesus earn more than Saka, Saliba, and Big Gabby. Damn, this is crazy. They're our highest earners. Olu says, while we're doing that, make sure you get Kivior out of the club. Mitchell says, as Curtis says, we're in the Truman Show. Yeah, we definitely need some players out, but that's all I care about from now until the end of the season is top sporting director, see where we end at the end of the season. Honestly, if we don't win the league and one of Liverpool or Chelsea wins it and we don't win any other trophies or just a Carabao or something like that, I would be leaning towards moving Mikel on. But I just know we're in bed with him so badly that it's not going to happen. So the sporting director is the only saving grace that we have. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with it. But yeah, I was meant to get off of here like a long time ago, but there's more people watching than there was before. And I just feel like I feel bad for the people that were on earlier. So I may just go a little bit longer, because it's only 11 here. So, and I know that this was like a major result, not in our favor. I know you guys want to, get this out, because once I get off of here, that's it for the weekend. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my weekend. There is no way that Arsenal are going to be like you know, once they fuck up, that's it for me. Jordan says, "Justice is our therapy. You're helping us vent." Listen, and I feel like that's what the community is for too. I feel like community is meant to be somewhere where you can say how you feel, and if it's not exactly what everybody else thinks, it's okay as long as it's not like, you know, rude or whatever, it's fine. And we all disagree on things. I just feel it's a really disappointing season so far. So I think people are going to be a little bit on the negative side. Um, but I feel like you need a place to be able to have your say, and I try not to have an echo chamber because Arsenal fans are not a monolith. And for the last like 2 years, um, people have been pretending like we're a monolith, and we're not. Olu says Lookman is way better than Martinelli. I There's a lot of players that are better than Martinelli, or they have more to their game than Martinelli, or would suit us better than Martinelli. I'll say those things. Jonathan says, "Yeah, we need these therapy sessions to vent." Cabello says, "Whenever we play a low block, we should play Rice as the 6 in order to stop the counter. Odegaard in the 8 so he can drop deep and be the playmaker. Ethan as the 10. He isn't afraid, um, and can make. I think I know what you're saying. Things happen." Um, and that's what, like, literally about 20 minutes in, I was like, we should take Jorginho off, play Rice in the 6, and bring Ethan on, especially because we had conceded. And at that stage, Fulham knew that they only needed that one goal. They didn't really need anything else. And we were just parked in their half. And I didn't understand why we needed the 2 DM system, especially with one DM that's playing in a second striker role. Just play Ethan in the left 8 or the right 8, maybe the right 8, and Martin goes to the left, and then you can maybe break them down. But this mid block, low block thing that we can't break down, I don't even think it's just because we don't have the right type of personnel. I just think it's because we don't try to access central spaces, and you have to get people to shift around. You have to move, you have to create angles. You need to move people around. And there were so many times where Saliba was standing there on the ball, pass it sideways. Timber would get it, pass it sideways. Jorginho would get it, pass it sideways. Wasn't nobody moving. Nobody was like receiving the ball in difficult areas to make the defenders have to defend. 'Cause that's another thing. When you're in mid blocks, deep blocks, if you have players receiving in dangerous areas and you have to defend them 4, 5, 6 times because they received the ball in those positions, it's likely that a Diop and a Bassi are going to give you a penalty. If it's not Virgil van Dijk, they're probably going to give you a penalty. But there just wasn't enough moments like that. I'm like, you're not making them defend. If you're making them defend in the air against freaking not Kivior, Trossard, yeah, they're going to get the ball every time. But make them have to defend on the ground. Make them have to shift around, move their bodies around. We just don't do that enough. And Arteta's afraid for those players to receive it in the pockets, in between the lines, because I think he's just so afraid to lose the ball. And we did look vulnerable, but I mean, you have to hope that all the money that you spend on the defense will save them, from conceding so many goals. Naledi says, "It does not matter who plays on the left. That left-hand side is a curse for any winger. Also, the team is not direct, and we have not played with a traditional fullback. We barely play low crosses." This was also driving me up the wall. The amount of times that I yelled, "Why are we chipping it into the back post? Why we don't do anything that's dangerous?" I don't know what the statistics are that Arteta sees that says that chip crosses to the back post are more dangerous than low hard across the 6, and why we don't access central spaces. How not accessing central spaces is more dangerous or less dangerous than being out in the left half space or the right half space. Why don't we try to do those things? You know? Because every time we chip it to the back post, not only do our players not know how to cross the ball, but it's just an easy headed ball out for decent defenders. Why don't you hit it low and hard across the 6? I don't, I don't get it. We play weird. Mitchell says, "Why can't we win the league, Jess?" Genuinely asking, board around 98. I'm gonna go. I'm oh, I'm Am I gonna go before witnessing Arsenal lift it? Well, I hope you don't. Um, it's not mathematically impossible. I just feel like it's unlikely. Arthur says, "If you can score 4 or 5 in one half and make changes that can't add more in the second half, that is a big indicator of how much we lack it attacking wise. It comes to bite us when the morale is low. Jordan says, what type of technical director the club gets will tell me if Arteta's days are numbered. No top DOF is going to come to Arsenal to take an order from a novice Arteta. And again, this is kind of off topic, but I feel like because we're talking macro too, and we already did like player ratings and stuff, that when we first hired Mikel, my thing was I actually was not opposed to what we did with Emery. I felt like we went from the arson thing and Raul and Edu and who else were in charge at the time wanted to go into they were running the club and then you had a coach. I just thought the coach was wrong, but I never wanted to go back into the manager being the club thing. I never wanted to go back to arson post David Dean. And I just feel like we've gone too far in the other direction where I don't know if they felt like that structure doesn't work for us. I'm like, why couldn't we try that structure again with a different coach? Maybe give them a little bit, because I don't feel like Emery doesn't feel like he has any control. I don't feel like Maresca doesn't feel like he has any control. I don't feel like Pep and Klopp felt like they didn't have any control. I feel like most of these managers, whether they're, Pep and Klopp, two of the best we've ever seen, or Maresca and Emery, up and coming managers or whatever, with decent teams, good teams, feel like they don't have control at all because they're not at all the end all and be all. And so I just felt like we kind of derailed that whole thought process because it didn't work with Emery. And I just feel like Emery wasn't the right coach for it, but we should have still stuck with a sporting director recruitment team, front office that dealt with all the transfers and stuff like that, and the coach just coached. They have a say so, they have they can voice their preference, but in reality, the higher ups are running recruitment because they should be, because the manager's talent ID can't be trusted. We went so far in the other direction that now I just don't think it can be salvaged. I don't understand why we went in this direction. I don't think we needed to. We should have a structure similar to Chelsea, similar to Villa, similar to Liverpool and City. We should have a structure where there's the front office and the main guys and the sporting director and all that are running shit. The coach has a say so, but really they're the coach, and they need to just coach the team and the players that they get. And if you're winning things and you're able to coach, you'll be happy. But this whole going back into arson just makes no sense to me. And so I want a DOF that, and you're right, if we get a DOF that's, I hate to say it, as much as I like Olabe, I do feel like Olabe would be basically just working with Mikel, and Mikel would get most of the things that he wants. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I just don't feel like we needed to go in this direction. I felt like it's just too far and we didn't need to do this. Social Join says, well, that's the point. It's up to Josh to see it this way. Josh has to make that call. The league is done and Liverpool's to lose. The moment Sven left the club, I realized we will never sign. That was the other person. So it was basically Raul, Sven Mislintat. It was Raul and Sven Mislintat mostly. He was doing the talent identification and Raul was doing the deals. Now, you can maintain that structure and get a better version of Sven Mislintat or somebody that you trust, and also have somebody that does the deals like Raul, but isn't, crooked or whatever you thought he was. We could have still maintained that structure and had a coach, that just coached the team. And I know Emery didn't get all the players that he wanted. And maybe you do need to give him a carrot here and there, give him the players that he wants. But also Emery's talent ID was not that great. He wanted Nzonzi and Zaha and guys like that. I'm like, I don't even know if that would have worked. So I just feel like we could have kept that structure. Nostradamus says Partey only must be starting in CM. He needs to start in his right position all the time or else it's not working. So yeah, he does need to start in his position. Jordan says, I can't believe people are going all the way back to Raul and Mislintat. It's not that deep. I think Mikel has just regressed. We were so much better in the first 2 seasons of challenging. Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about the structure. I'm just talking about what we like. I think even past that first season, though, Arteta's gotten more power, and the biggest mistake was giving him all the power in the summer that we bought Kai and Rice and Timber and Raya, and it's a direct correlation between him getting all the power and us regressing, because a lot of the regression comes from the lack of good talent ID. He just needed to buy a striker or a winger that or a left center mid. That's all he needed to do. And he didn't do any of it. Nothing. He bought a goalkeeper, a DM, a Kai Havertz, and Timber. So it's not just about the structure is not just like this thing that happened that doesn't affect anything. It does, because it directly affects where we are now, because his choices have led us to this position. He got all the credit for telling everybody that he wanted Kai and that he had to convince Edu and them to bring him in. No one else wanted him because everybody knew that that wasn't the right signing. You know? EA says, can you predict what will happen this season logically without using hopium? This would be realistic assessment of Arsenal. I can't see Arsenal achieving any trophies. Mr. Happy says, Real Sociedad sporting director isn't good enough for us to beat City and Liverpool. His role is being diminished, and that's why he is leaving. Usually, if you're doing a good job, your role doesn't get diminished. Theo says, we gave the keys to a kid. For fuck's sake, there's a reason no top European club offers a manager role in the beginner. Mata says a Kai Havertz, harsh, well said. I mean, because he doesn't have a real position. That's why I said we bought Kai Havertz, because he doesn't really have a position, does he? Social Join says no ever was projecting United or Netflix this week. 2 losses and a DOF left after 5 months. That's top class episodes. Look at what he turned Lacazette and Aubameyang into. Both were quality goal scorers, and they became shells of their former self. He can't coach an attacking football, and I think the way Arteta came in, he was the type of coach that needed to get rid of Aubameyang and Ozil and stuff. I think a different coach probably would have done something different. And that's my thing, is there wasn't only one path to where we got to now. You know, he's had lots of time, lots of money, and no pressure. And I think a lot of coaches with no pressure, a lot of money, and a lot of time could have led us to this place, and maybe even achieve more, maybe even a little bit less. There's not a lot there, you know. So but there was different paths to take, and we took this one, and it's not leading us to trophies, or it hasn't led us there now. So we should, relook at it and see, because I personally think that Arteta, his only option being a novice coach, he needed to move on from players that didn't respect him. Because if he didn't, he would have ended up just like Emery, because those players didn't respect Emery either. And he would renege. He would get him out the squad and then have to use them. He never stood on business. Arteta stood on business. He had to do that. But if you bring in a more experienced manager, let's say Everton end up with Arteta and we end up with Ancelotti, we would have kept those older players and we would have done something different. So these are all choices. These are not like the only thing that we could have done. And we just have to look at it. I just feel like the club needs to take a serious look at it and not just go, well, you know, Chelsea, it's just luck and we got injuries and Arteta's great and we just need to stay the course. They really need to consider, you know, what's going to make us actually win trophies, and that doesn't mean that it's just about, the coach, it's a recruitment, whatever. Arthur says, which club do you think would take Arteta if he leaves? One of the Spanish clubs. Mooney Time says, we were much better last season than the first season we challenged. At the end, we were. Yeah, I think the best version of Arsenal under Mikel Arteta was January through April of 2024. Back end of last season was the best, because 22 and 23 was fun at the beginning of the season because it was new and fresh. But the second half of 22-23 was not fun because we were struggling. They were doing the low and mid blocks. We were losing players to injuries, and we were getting found out. And we were still conceding loads of goals, and we had some really bad results. So the version of Arsenal that I really like is January through April of last season. But at the same time, it was only like 4 months. So yeah. Um Yo-Yo says Barella, Kudus, Mount, Gundogan were the options, having previously missed out on for whatever reason. Paketa, Bruno G, he chose Kai. And that's why when people are like, Edu, I'm just like, Edu didn't bring Kai. Kai cannot be attributed to Edu, you know. And Mount aside, any one of these other options would be better than what we did. Mata says our Arsenal therapy session is slowly turning into an Arteta out session. I feel like that's just what happens when we're not in a good period. Most people are not Arteta out. Yo-Yo says waiting 10 years for Arteta to win the league would be success for a manager, but not for the ownership nor the club. A says, I can't lie. We could do with Vieira in midfield. Yes. On the sideline, no. You talk about Vieira, Fabio. Which Vieira? Because the only Vieira I want is Patrick. Y'all need to see. I wish we had an international break right now. I feel like some people that have never watched Arsenal win need to go on YouTube and watch those grainy films of the teams from the early 2000s and tell me that and look at our team and say, do you actually look at the difference between these teams? Not just the way that they look, but the composition of the teams and the attitude of these teams. Those teams did not fuck around. These teams did not have games like we have. They don't have Newcastles and Bournemouths and Brightons in these games. They don't have these. That's why all I have to do is look at the team and look at our results and say, does it feel like we're going to win the league? No. Because if you've ever watched us win the league, you know what it looks like. We've had better players and sometimes closer to title winning teams and not one. Teams with Van Persie and Fabregas and Nasri, those teams were really good teams. Those teams had more talent than these teams do. Especially at the top end, they weren't winning, so we need to be so real. I could just feel it in my bones. CRG says, the other day you said we are unbeatable after you won. I will tell you what, you are just unbearable. If you can find why I said we were unbeatable, I've never said that. I said that we would go on a run. This is exactly what I said on Judge Mo's show. We will go on a run. I can't guarantee that we'll win every single game, but we'll go on a run. And we've been unbeatable since then. So I never said we were unbeatable. Goodbye. Social Join says Havertz not technical enough to play in a Wenger midfield. Wenger would have turned Havertz into a white Adebayor. Dead. Nuanced argument. The league is far, far harder these days. PL money has strengthened and cannon fodder mid to lower table teams. I would just say the reason why I don't listen to, the league is harder now is because you can only play what's in front of you, because people are like, well, this team has to go up against City's Pep City. That team had to go up against Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United. And at that time, with the money that was in the league and the talent that was there, that was the most difficult team that you could play. So we can't compare, because basically when we start doing that, then we start looking at players from back then and we have to rubbish them all. So it's like, oh, well, Holland, are we going to say that player is better than Henry because the league is different now? No, we're not. So I don't bring the league was different and it's more difficult and all that kind of stuff. You can only play who's in front of you. And title winning teams look like title winning teams. They feel like title winning teams. They have the same elements. They have world-class managers. They have world-class players. They have goal scorers. They have an ironclad mentality. They have balanced teams. They win games that they're supposed to. And if they are not playing well, they still win the games. That is it. The foundation of a title winning team, whether it was in the 1990s or now, So yeah, Yo-Yo says Wenger's cup winning teams would hurt this side, let alone the title winners. Never bought into the silly combined 11s or claims that Arteta is the second best manager in the Prem. Havertz isn't good enough technically. He's great tactically, not technically. People confuse this. Yeah. And it's the thing is you can't still try to play in a technical way sometimes with a team that's not as technical. I don't even think we really fully buy into the team that we are. If we're like this big, tall, off the ball team, why are we not smashing players, nicking the ball, going direct, putting good crosses into the box, and just letting Marino and Rice and Havertz just head it in the back of the net? Why are we still trying to pussyfoot around the edges of the box if we're not that team? Either we're going to be this big off the ball team and we're going to smash teams and play direct and, play more like Brentford. Because there were times where Brentford was just like a very direct team that would cross the ball in and, they would do that. They would really commit to being like this brutal team off the ball. They did it, maybe like the first 2 seasons of Thomas Frank. We don't do that. We still try to play slow, methodical, possession-based pep ball with less technical players. I don't get that. We don't have to do that. We can just buy into who we are. I just want us to double down on something. So yeah, Yo-Yo says we're back to blaming these players. Arteta has set these guys up to fail. This is his team. Kevo says, Jess, the reason why we are in this position is because Arsenal fans are prepared to accept mediocre. Once it's obvious the league is done, they go on the run and fool us all again. I just wonder if we don't win anything, I wonder what it'll be like in the stadium, because that's the only thing that will change things. Team or fans online don't change anything. Fans in the stadium are the ones that can make it super toxic for a manager. And I think they do look at stuff online, but it's not really us that change it. I feel like if you go in the stadium and it's quiet and people start booing and stuff like that, that's when it gets bad for a manager. And the last time I was there, it was pretty like everybody was happy. That was like a year ago around the same time. So I don't know what the shift will be like if we don't win anything, but I just have to imagine that people are starting to ask questions, Um, yeah. I just wonder. Jordan says, I don't know if I could stop watching Arsenal for 15 years, regardless of how bad we are. Real fans don't do it. Jerome says, Nostra, yes, because of the constant letdowns in the club is not showing the ambition to win. Nostradamus says, the day Arteta makes a substitute before opposition manager. Ye says, yeah, Jess, Kim Kardashian ain't coming back to the stadium. If it gets bad, good. I don't want her to ever come back. AMD says, wait, is this still the same stream from earlier? Yes. I only stayed on because there's still 2,100 of you guys in here, and some people came in late. And I just figured I'd go till like 11:30 because for the rest of the day, I'm not doing anything. So a longer stream for people that didn't really get to see the earlier one is probably the right thing to do, because I may not be here tomorrow. I don't know. Boy says, and I like Havertz. He's a great option to have around, but a tactician he is not. He is a ball. He's a ball of technical attributes with some height, and that's about it. Kevo says, I was at the game today, and I will be bringing out a new banner for the Everton game. Had enough of this sick of this mediocre. Yeah, I just wonder how long before it turns toxic, because at some point I do feel like people will get sick of not winning and ask questions. I think if this season pans out the way I think it will, where Man City will not win it, and one of Liverpool, most likely Liverpool, or Chelsea wins, especially if Chelsea wins, I think it has to get negative. I think it has to. It just has to. Yo-Yo says the Emirates will shift once Chelsea pull away from us in the league, or Villa goes further than Arsenal in the Champions League, or we fall short of the domestic cups to a rival. Yeah, he says, Jess, I think fans are trying to find an excuse for why these problems keep happening. One answer, board. Your board needs to put Arteta on a leash, but let him free to do it. Your board needs to put Arteta on a leash, but they let him free to do whatever he wants. Blaze says, even if the league wasn't harder, back in the day, 2000s, Arsenal, United, and Liverpool was far better than teams than other. We need to stop protecting Arteta. Exactly. Like, it's once you start doing that and comparing eras and trying to say that this era is better, then you have to apply it across the board. Then everything back then was not as good. Can't just cherry pick, and I'm not willing, to go back and pretend like the players that were back then were not great players. They were great for the time. And you can only measure based on what they were up against, not based upon things that are happening 20 years later. Because we can't see peak Sir Alex Ferguson team play Liverpool now. So we can't compare, and we shouldn't pretend to try. You just know when your team is going to win the league or when they're in the title race for real. You can feel it in your gut. You just know it. And any people that were saying that they felt it this season, I was like, hope. Arthur says, on a serious note, why is Sterling at Arsenal? If Partey can be a right back, why can't Sterling be an option at left wing? Because it was a panic buy. It was just to fill in for a body. Like, we weren't really like, honestly, if it wasn't Sterling, somebody that Arteta knew, we wouldn't have got anybody. We wouldn't have got anybody, and that's the worst part. Yo-Yo says they will blame others before Arteta. He's the Teflon Don. AMD says this ownership, man, we need some big money owners that actually care about the sport and know what they're doing. Nostradamus says Kai may not be a tactician, but he can put in a shift, but he seems as the man to spearhead attacks is a no-no. I just think even like him, the whole working hard thing, that only we were saying that wasn't enough last season, and it wasn't actually until he started scoring goals at center forward where people started to change their feeling on him. Now we're going back to that, and I just don't feel like, when people are like, well, we should start Martinelli for his hard work. I feel like once you get to the point where you're only choosing a player based on what they do off the ball and hard running and stuff, it's a sign that player is not good enough. Everybody at Arsenal works hard. Everyone does. Everyone works their socks off. Everybody works off the ball. Saka, Odegaard, Saliba, Gabriel. Everybody works hard. Everyone. So we shouldn't just be choosing players because they, stick a boot in. And lately I just don't feel like Havertz is offering enough. Theo says Wenger, with essentially no money for transfer, had a team of teenagers in a title race versus UCL finalists, Chelsea and United. We're well within our rights to be very disappointed right now. Ye says you had money, just like United, you invested poorly. Look at the players you missed out on. Kudus, Fofana, Zubi, Mejraoui, Hato usually have good wages to offer, so no excuses. Social Join says Cronkies are about to spend 500 million on renovations. Don't talk to me about money and owners. I'm scared about these renovations because every time we improve the stadium or something, that means that we have to go through hard times, and also not being able to use the loans the way that we did for the last couple of seasons is going to impact our ambition or our transfer business as well. So renovations plus changes to the loans, because the Cronkies never really put their own money in, is very scary times for us. Richard says Arteta is shit along with these useless owners of our club, not theirs. I don't think Arteta is shit, but I definitely think there should be questions asked. Victor says exactly, if you're being commended for putting in a shift, then you're not, you're playing poor. Yeah, so it's a not a great place to be, but we'll see how things unfold. Personally, I'm just not really that fussed about it. I just think we'll land where we land. You just must finish in the top 4, and then we look at the end of the season, and like I said, if I do think he should go if anybody other than City wins, and we don't win a major trophy. I think he has to. I don't think you can finish top 4 and not win anything and be so far off the pace after the summer window that we had. I just don't think you can just maintain. The same people cannot keep their job. So somebody has to kick rocks, so I don't know who it'll be, or if it'll be anyone, but hopefully this Arsenal therapy helped. We did do the player ratings a while back. So for those of you guys who are like, are you guys just talking? We did talk for like another hour after that because we needed the therapy session. Today was very disappointing. And hopefully, at the very least, at least start playing some good fucking football. Let go. I'm at that point now that playing like this to finish 4th is not what I'm trying to do for the rest of the year. So yeah, but make sure you guys like and subscribe on your way out. Thank you so much for everybody that did super chats. I think I read them all. Darwin says happy Edu is gone, wasted 2 windows, look no depth. I'm just making sure. Yeah, I read all of these. So thank you so much for all the people that sent in super chats. That was really, really kind. And really just like, there's 2,000 of you guys on multiple platforms watching, and I really do appreciate it. This helps me out a lot, and now I'll be able to go and sit on the couch and eat food, and watch movies without feeling like I want to crash out anymore. So I love you guys to death. Make sure you guys like and subscribe on your way out. And I'll definitely I'll definitely stream tomorrow, and I'm sure I'll be on somebody else's channel getting cooked. So yeah, but I love you guys to death, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.